All right, I'm showing it 6:01. Thank you everybody for your patience. This is Tammy Limmer. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Hazlet Board of Education for Monday, August 3rd, 2020. People join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Next on our special agenda this evening, correspondence, Madam Secretary.
Yes, thanks, President Lemmer. We have received emails, several emails since last Monday night's board meeting, upwards of 60 emails reflecting countless thoughtful points and very personal opinions regarding the choice for an in-person hybrid model or, versus a district-wide virtual curriculum to start this upcoming school year. They urge the school board, along with Superintendent Cook and Assistant Superintendent Gillings, to consider each of these points and opinions as we make this most difficult decision tonight.
Great, thank you. And we've been trying diligently to respond to all of those emails. Logging in this evening, I realized there have been some emails that we received over the course of the day today that we have not gotten a chance to respond to. So hopefully questions and concerns and issues will be addressed this evening. If not, either way, we will still follow up with those unanswered emails that we received today. But thank you, Secretary Wheeler.
And thank you, President Lemmer. Thank you for responding to all of those promptly.
My pleasure. So we are going to move into public comment period. I'm going to walk through the process for those of you who were perhaps not on the call last week. This portion of the agenda is for members of the public to address questions or comments to the board. As noted on the agenda, this is a meeting of the Board of Education for the purpose of conducting business of the district. It is not considered a public interactive discussion. However, each individual wishing to speak and share comments or questions with the board is allowed up to 5 minutes for your individual comments. Board members will listen and take comments and questions under advisement. Board members will not be responding to individual comments. As presiding officer, I will refer questions to the superintendent for any research and response following this evening as necessary. As I stated last week as well, I anticipate that most, if not all, of this evening's comments and questions will relate to the district's reopening plans. And again, I hope that many of those concerns or questions are addressed over the course of this evening. But just to reiterate, once the public comment period has closed and everyone wishing to speak has had the opportunity to do so, we will move directly into the superintendent's report and the remainder of the agenda. Questions from the public that arise following the public comment period should be directed to Superintendent Cook and/or building principals. And again, we appreciate everybody's flexibility and patience while we're on the Zoom platform. With currently 340 people and counting, a Zoom meeting was literally the only feasible and legal way we could meet to conduct the business of the board this evening. So the way we're going to handle public comments is by clicking on the little icon that has the little people images that says participants. By clicking on that, it pulls up the participant list, and there are buttons, one of which is called raise hand. If you are interested in speaking as part of public comment this evening, please click that raise hand button, and I will see a little hand icon will come up next to your name. I will recognize people in order of those hands being raised. I do see that we have a number of folks who have called in, so they may not be at a screen and may not be able to use the raise hand icon. If that is the case, we invite you to email the district. We have Mr. Casson, our technology director, on hand. And you can send an email with your question or comment to webmaster, webmaster, at hazlitt.k12.mi.us. One last housekeeping, as you are recognized, I will say your name. Mr. Casson will start the process of unmuting you. You will see a message that says host would like to unmute you, and you need to hit OK or yes to that. And I think that is all of our housekeeping for the evening. So I will move into recognizing those who wish to speak. And
Tammy,
yes.
do we need to do a full roll call?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Probably should do that for the record, just so that the community and the public know who is on the call this evening. So thank you for redirecting me on that before we get into the public comment. Treasurer East, please indicate if you are here. Has Karen been able to join us yet?
Tammy, she's having computer issues, and she told me that she's going to get on as soon as she can get a secure connection. She may be coming into our building.
Okay, I will circle back to her before we take our votes. Let's see, Secretary, did I say Secretary Wheeler?
Here.
You're here. Trustee Maury?
Here.
Trustee Michaud?
Here.
Vice President Polverento?
Here.
Trustee Collins?
Here.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I am President Lemmer. I think that's everybody. Hopefully Karen will get on as soon as possible. All right, so next, again, going into public comment, I'm showing first in the list, Stacy Lynn Camp.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to read the email I sent to a number of you, and I appreciate the responses I received so quickly. I know you're inundated. So I just want to say, as a professor, a mom of 2 children, and a volunteer contact tracer for the state since May, I really don't see how schools will stay open beyond a few days, and these are some of the reasons why. First, unless we quarantine everyone for 2 weeks before school starts and then test them before starting, it's likely that someone will have COVID on day 1, which we saw recently with the school in Indiana. Second, if we don't test students every couple of days, which Harvard is actually doing in a very expensive process, someone will have COVID and expose their classmates, teachers, staff to COVID. Keep in mind, false negative tests are very common, even if you are symptomatic. According to a recent peer-reviewed study in the Science Daily article, 38% of COVID patients in the study received a false negative test at the onset of COVID symptoms. This is why the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services recommends that you quarantine for 10 to 14 days if you are in contact with someone who is a COVID positive case. According to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, anyone with COVID cannot return to school, work, public until 72 hours after their symptoms are gone. Many COVID positive folks report having lingering symptoms, as I'm sure many of us have heard. Just think of your seasonal cold, flu, and how often you have a cough or other symptoms that just continue for a long time. So let's think about a best case scenario for a kiddo. They get exposed to a COVID positive classmate. They quarantine for 10 days and get sick on day 8. They test positive on day 10. They're sick for 8 days. They have now been out of school for 16 days. The cough and the sore throat lingers for another 5 days, so they have to stay home. They have now been out of school for 21 days. They wait another mandatory 3 days according to the rules set by MDHHS, and they return to school on day 25 if the school has not shut down due to COVID cases by then. So let's imagine this scenario with teachers. We'll imagine that the teacher is teaching 2 cohorts, let's call them cohort A and B. A student in cohort A tests positive day 2 of starting school. Cohort A and B's teacher and cohort A now must quarantine for 10 to 14 days. Cohort A and B's teacher tests positive a few days later. Now cohort B has been exposed to a confirmed COVID positive case, and they need to quarantine for 10 to 14 days. I could go on and on with these cases, but you can see what I'm trying to get at here. And that it's going to be very difficult to continue school in these scenarios. In these scenarios, I've assumed that the parents, the school staff, the teachers are all good actors. However, there are people who will not quarantine. We know that, it's a fact. People who will not quarantine who have been exposed to a COVID positive case. And those are the people that will put our staff, our students, our teachers at greatest risk. And then finally, and some of you may be familiar with this study, the CDC just shared a study 3 days ago. It dates to July 31st, 2020. It's on their website on a COVID outbreak at a summer camp in Georgia. Staff and children contracted COVID within 2 days of the camp's opening. All staff and camp attendees were required to submit evidence of a negative COVID test less than 12 days before the camp started. The camp followed nearly all the guidelines outlined by the CDC, though the campers did not wear cloth masks. A staff member tested positive on day 2 of the camp. 76 of the camp attendees, which was 260 people, who took a COVID test after exposure to the staff member tested positive for COVID. 51% of those positive were aged 6 to 10 years old, 44% were aged 11 to 17, and 33% 18 to 21 years. The authors of the study state that the transmission was likely underestimated, given that many of the participants in the camp refused to take a COVID test. The authors concluded that their case study provides further, quote, evidence demonstrating that children of all ages are susceptible to COVID-19 infection. And contrary to early reports that many of us have heard, they might play an important role in transmission, end quote. So I hope you'll do everything in your power to protect our teachers, our staff, and our students given this new data and information. I encourage the district to do a virtual start like nearly every district around us, or at the very least, give preference to students who absolutely need our resources. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Next, I'm showing Jason Kilday.
Thank you, board members. I have emailed you a couple times on this matter, so I'm not going to pain you with rereading my email that I'm sure you're very capable of doing. However, I do want to pose the question for consideration. Assuming that 100% online option is the route we go, and when we're heading that way, at what point will the district deem it appropriate to open some form of face-to-face communication? Is it when there's a vaccine? Is it when the virus is completely gone from society, or somewhere in between? Because that's my concern, is if we start going down this road of 100% online, when does it end? Is it in terms of COVID? So I'm going to leave it at that. I know we can't answer questions right now, but I sure hope that's discussed as we're considering the options and voting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm showing a first name, Aaron. Aaron, if you could, once you're unmuted, introduce yourself with your full first and last name, please.
Yeah, hi, Aaron Irving. I live in Haslett, Michigan. Irving, I-R-V-I-N-G. So I just want to, make a statement. My daughter's going to go into kindergarten, so she's right there, and I will be truly sad if she doesn't get the experience. I understand that, but I guess what I want to say is I just hope 2 things. One, that I hope everybody takes account, not just the kids, but the parents, right? I mean, not the teachers. We have two different peoples that we need to make sure we do the best answer for, right? I mean, the teachers are mothers, fathers, uncles, cousins, grandparents of, us who live in this area. So I'm hoping the board takes that into account too, not just what's the best interest of us, but our children. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there was an article put out that said the hybrid was probably the worst of the bunch. I mean, I love that idea, but I know there's a lot of parents out there that are 2-income families, and childcare is gonna be a hard thing. But if we go with the hybrid, we're actually gonna be more at risk, because now those kids are gonna be faced with going to school and then going to childcare or something. So I just hope they take that into account too. So that's, I mean, I know you guys have a hard decision. I'm on a school board for a private Lutheran school, so I know you guys got a lot of work and are doing a lot of making the best decisions. So thank you for your service too. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you very much, sir. And greetings to your incoming kindergartner. We're happy to have her. Next, I'm showing Anthony Graybosch.
Can you hear me?
I can. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm not gonna read my email. It was not as well written as the one that was just read. I just wanted to say I have heard a rumor that the decision is 100% virtual school. If that does happen, I mean, certainly there is a tiny percent of, well, there is a percent of the community that will be negatively affected by that, and I hope that provision will be made for the needs, things like tutoring if the virtual education environment is not available to them, provided free by the district. I think there's grant money for that. I think there are ways to make that happen. I did want to say, express gratitude to the board. I would never want to criticize people who take time that could be monetized to share with their family and use it for public service. I don't quite understand, and maybe that's my fault, I don't quite understand why there isn't, I guess, more thoroughly, publicly, easily available information regarding this process. And then I just wanted to share some information that was shared with me by one of my colleagues who's biophysicist and has done some work on return to home and corporate. And everything I mentioned is from peer-reviewed sources. A lot of it is from physicists and chemists. Some of it is from physicians. And the first thing is, and anyone can email me if they'd like the papers. It published in the Journal of American Medical Association from Cincinnati Children's Hospital. They used interrupted time series analysis, which is a better than back of the envelope, but not perfect way to do sort of in the aggregate an experimental and control group. And they did an estimate of the effect on the overall fatality rate of children and adults that came as a result of schools being closed. And in their most, in their rosiest picture, it was in 26 days for 100,000 population, 1.5 fewer deaths and 129 fewer cases. And in the 75th percentile, it was 424 fewer cases and 12.6 fewer deaths per 100,000. The second thing is that there was some disdain. The best speaker, I think, last time was a pediatrician, Dr. Melissa. I didn't catch her last name, so I don't want to knock the profession. I will say that the math requirement for entering medical school is not even calculus. It's stuff that my daughter will know before she's 14, and that treatment and risk modeling are very different. And much as I would not be responsible if I hung a shingle offering to intubate people who needed help surviving, it isn't responsible for someone who is bad at risk modeling, or worse, good at risk modeling and perhaps a little excited about seeing his ideas made real, to say that people who disagree with him are sub-rational or filled with fear. I don't have the faintest chance how to do treatment. I am a physicist, a statistician, a data scientist, a machine learning expert. If the question is risk modeling, the set of physicians who are better at it than me is relatively low. And so I felt bad for the community to have two physicians very excited about their ideas hold forth regarding opinions that are not consistent with scientific fact. One in particular that I'll mention, since time is short, there's a lot of good evidence that this is spread by an aerosol. There's a good study by Caltech chemists and people at UPenn saying it's indicated. There's another good study that says it might be the primary means by which it's spread. What does that mean? It means that someone speaks or coughs or something, and then the virus particles are inside of a spit droplet. Everything falls at the same rate in vacuum, but regardless of mass, but in air, if something's really light, it has more time before it hits the ground, so it can go further, a lot further than 6 feet. It could even go 30 feet, maybe, if it gets lucky or if it's caught in a draft from a ventilation system. If you're a scientist or a physician and you're commenting and trying to guide the public, you're supposed to separate your ethical notions from scientific fact. And I didn't see that. And as someone who, one of the things I hope gets me into heaven if the wrong person sneezes on me is the patience I showed in my career before I switched to data science, teaching pre-med students from freshman to senior level how to reason quantitatively and do the tiniest bit of
I
math.
want to thank you. You've reached your 5 minutes.
I'd like to see a more open process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm showing next Heather Durian.
Hi, I'm a mother of two at Hazlitt, and I just wanted to praise the committee for their well thought out, excellent report. I've listened to Okemos and Mason board meetings. Whatever is decided, I would hope that the committee and the superintendent would take into account that other schools are reevaluating, such as Mason plans to again look at face-to-face in 2 weeks. And also, I'm sure you're all very cognizant of the needs of children with IEPs to be in person. So I just wanted to thank everyone for the hybrid plan. Of course, that plan has my heart for a variety of reasons. And thank you for your consideration. That's all.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm showing Eric Hunter.
Hi, thanks for your time today. The first thing I want to say is, I think everybody here is a parent, and, we do want the best for our kids. It'd be unfortunate if it sounds like the decision might have already been made, and that would be a shame. I'm a PhD researcher. I'm administrative research on campus, have for, several decades, large data risks. And people throw out some of these studies, they don't always put the context of everything risk. Risk is all around us and exists all the time. For example, at Georgia summer camp, none of those people are at high risk that the COVID sickness would do much to them. And so it's one of those things that they look at, they're all the low risk factors for getting it. As we look at these risks, if the way we're approaching this, our kids wouldn't be learning to drive. They're the highest risk for fatality and hurting. And we have to balance the different risks. If the kids don't go to school at some kind of structured thing, it doesn't necessarily be all in person or certain folks, and that some sort of selective hybrid can be very important. We have other risks that are involved. The CDC, we have death that comes from overdose, from depression, and other things that are coming in that are higher than the current risk they have for dying of COVID. That's a very different thing. And so we could actually be increasing the risk for death, which is really odd. And that's right from the top of them. And so it's not a matter of just one risk. These are risks. But it's a matter of, as a whole, what is the greatest risk? And that's what I just want to kind of think is, it's hard to say and make these kind of decisions because we have to balance all the risks. They hit all the kids on a large scale. And I don't see any other way than to have some of them start in school in some capacity. I don't know what that is. And that needs to be worked out. And if we don't start initially with some face time, the online won't mean as much. We had one of the teachers last time say that, especially for the younger kids. The younger kids under the age of 10 are a third less likely to contract or spread or have any kind of dire symptoms. Those are the most important kids to have in the classroom. And that isn't just a little study. That's a study following 100,000 people. And so it isn't just small numbers. So these are balanced risks. Other districts are looking at it. Grand Rapids is almost all in person of some sort, as so is many other, let's go to East Grand Rapids, so are other districts. So let's not follow the herd. Let's be wise and figure out how do we selectively focus on the kids that need it. But thanks for your efforts.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Next up, I just have it listed as iPhone. So if you could please identify yourself.
Okay.
That's probably me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Michelle Rockstead. My son is a 13-year-old going into 8th grade. I've worked in healthcare throughout the whole pandemic as a medical assistant. seen some positive cases, dealt with them, been tested myself. What I really want to address is fear and preparedness. I think the main thing, I was terrified in the beginning. I mean, absolutely terrified. I came home, I cried. I isolated from my son. I isolated from my mother who just lost her husband in February. I think what scared me the most is we were not prepared. You know, nobody was prepared with the PPE that they needed. Nobody was prepared with the hygiene. I mean, we had it, but it was scarce at a time. I think one of the main things is because I have a feeling it's going to go online. My son's pretty disappointed, even though he's hated school up until last year, of course. I think the main thing is just being prepared when it's time to go back. Have a plan. He needs to go back eventually. So I hope that we take this time to prepare for what that means. I hope that the teachers have the supplies they need to make them feel comfortable. I hope that the students have the supplies they need to make themselves feel comfortable. My son left on his bike the other day with a mask on his handlebar because he knows, you know, at 13, he knows. And he's a pretty irresponsible kid in most manners, but this was something he knows is important because I've drilled it in his head. You know, I've definitely cleaned my house more than I probably have in years. We've definitely taken much more precautions at the office. You know, we've taken the very best care of the people and our coworkers. You know, if it wasn't for my coworkers, I think that we would have went downhill fast. And I think it's important that the teachers talk to each other, that they express their concerns and fears with each other. It's really important. And I just want to mention something that my son said. We go for car rides, and that's our time of talking, because other than that, he's 13 and he doesn't really want to talk to me. So we took the time, and I asked him after he talked to some of his friends online about their schooling in other states. And I said, well, with all the stipulations that they're putting in place, what do you think about that? And he was like, well, starting online school wouldn't be so bad to begin with. But he was like, eventually I need to go back to school. And his words broke my heart when he said, it gives me something to wake up for. And you just have to understand that the ability to be around other children is huge. I mean, it just means so much. He knows that safety comes first. He is 13. But he needs human interaction eventually. So I beg of the board and the teachers to just get prepared for what that looks like. Get prepared to have the safest, comforting, open conversations. And that's all I really have.
Thank you very much. Next I'm showing, I'm hoping I pronounced it correctly, Onette Mitchell. And Onette looks like she's a Buckeye. Oh, and I'm not seeing Onette anymore. I don't know if she dropped off. Hopefully she'll be able to get logged back in. For the record, I do want to share that Trustee East is on, Treasurer East is on. We want to shout out Karen for us?
Hello.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to go to the next name that I see then, which is Zachary Vietti.
Hello. So my concern is with the lack of structure to the online system. I don't understand how the self-paced learning is going to work with returning to school, because kids are going to be at different places at that point. In addition, I feel like we're asking our kids to be at the college level responsibility rather than at their actual age. And I feel like there needs to be more structure. And that's all. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate your time, sir. Thank you. Next up, we have Shama Anderson.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks for taking the time to listen to the parents tonight. I'll try to make this brief. I guess initially I had been reviewing some of the survey results online, and when I saw that almost 67% of parents would prefer a face-to-face / hybrid model, I kind of got excited because I have a kindergartner and a third grade student who did not do well with the online model last year. The lack of structure, the inability to manipulate the items on Zoom, I'm not sorry, Zoom, but Seesaw and or Google Classroom was very difficult for them. I'm also a full-time working parent as well as my husband who has to find time to help them do their assignments. My children also need additional services at school via IEP or additional reading
And when I
support.
was trying to unmute her because my screen was.
Oh, Jeff, we can hear you.
Sorry. So my children need additional support, and that is not an option via the online model. So I just want to consider, I know people have talked about risks and studies, and I don't have any data on that. What I do have is knowing as a mother the social and, social and depression risk of children who don't get to get out and visit other children. And I think that that should just be considered. I know we're not going to completely eliminate risk in life. Like the gentleman said, why would we have our 16-year-olds driving? I've also had teens that have gone through that, and it makes you skip a heartbeat. So I just want to make sure that everybody's looking at the whole child, not just sickness, but their emotional and behavioral issues that are going to arise from being isolated for so long. I also think that if there is an online option, we do need an end to that. Like how long? Last year it was an emergency and we all just got on board and everybody, we did our best. But now we've had time to plan, and we're in August, and my children want to know what the plan is. And I would appreciate, at least a decision made so that we can move forward, whether that means we choose a different school district or whether that means we have other options. I really, just take the time to think about the whole decision, the whole child, the whole family, because everybody is going to have risk no matter what, and it's not going to go away. There's going to be risks with the vaccine that's never been taken. There's going to be risks with, having kids doing, schooling and falling behind. There's going to be risks with state testing. There's going to be risks with reading. So look at everything together, and that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that Onette Mitchell has gotten back on, so I'm going to actually jump ahead to her. Jeff, if we can unmute Onette, please.
Hello.
Hi.
You hear me?
We can. Thank you. I'm glad you were able to get back. Sorry for the technology
Thank
issue.
you. Oh, no, it's okay. Thank you so very much for your meeting. I have a couple of concerns. One would be my daughter is actually employed at the school, and she works with small kids. And I understand that there's a mask requirement for a certain age group. I can't imagine how not putting a mask on younger kids, the ones that are prone to picking their noses, I'm sorry, and sharing it with their friends or sharing their food or not washing their hands after going to the bathroom or sneezing, coughing without covering. And my daughter she has a respiratory issue. So every time she has to take time off, that's time off that she loses on her sick days or her personal days. So what's gonna happen should something like that occurs where she needs to be off for a long period of time? Now she's concerned about losing her job. The other concern that I have is I myself have immune suppressant therapy, and in December we lost 2 very good teachers that, if I'm correct, would have fallen into that category of being immune suppressant. There is no possible way that had something happened to them under where we previously are talking about, that the parents or the kids would ever be able to get past something like that. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us and for your comments. I hope that I will get this name right. I'm showing John Lim Han, and then it says Miss J.
Sorry, that's my, it's for my students because they can't pronounce my name, but you did very well. Thank you. And so this is a heavy lift. And so I just want to make a comment to not just the board, but also to the other participants on here. There's no set rules here. I work for a university. This is a fluid space, and it's nice to have a set date. I would hope that you're using best practices, and as things get worse, you adjust. If things get better, and I know that people like to use the analogy of children in a car, but yes, we do make them wear a seatbelt. And this is something that is very complicated, and it's not something that we're living in alone in a vacuum. It is a global pandemic. And as such, it is affecting everybody. You know, I have 3 children. I'm a single parent with 3 children. I live in a multi-generational household. And my children have said, bottom line, and they are social butterflies. And they're all in sports and activities. And they've said, I don't want to go to school and come home and kill my grandparents. Bottom line. And this is not about they're going to run in a car and kill over them. It is about breathing the same air. And how do you control that? The other thing that I think we've talked about in the whole student and knowing that we all are individualized, it's very difficult when you're dealing with developmental issues. It's very different from a kindergartner who's 5 to an 18-year-old. These are, regardless of it, whether this was happening or not, we all do different curriculums and developmental stages because the kids themselves are going through those developmental stages. And so hopefully that will be impacting that. But I haven't heard a lot about, except for the one speaker in the beginning, about the teachers. I myself am as an educator. I can tell you if I'm trying to prepare a curriculum that's both online and in hybrid and in person, you're asking me to do 3 jobs. And that is not okay. I want to say that I see some teachers on the call here. It is not okay to put all that burden on an educator. To say, okay, because this is the best interest for the student, yes, it may be. Whether it's a risk or not you take, but you're asking them to do 3 jobs, and that is physically not possible. I know that I have to teach a class, and I refuse to do 2 different, I can't teach 5 sections. I can't do hybrid, can't do both online. I can't. And I shouldn't have to. So as we're doing this heavy lifting for the students, but be comprehensive, you got a whole bunch of staff as well who might be immune compromised. They shouldn't have to go through multiple different jobs to do the same curriculum. And so I think that if you do go online, which I am actually supportive, I know the person said that there are a lot of parents, I would prefer an online at this time, and then you may revisit it. But I'd like you to look at the staff and the faculty that are working for you, because you're asking them to do an incredible heavy lift. Unless you're gonna pay them 3 times the amount. I'm sure a lot of teachers would be very happy that I suggested that, but that's not gonna happen. And so as such, let's be mindful of that as well. And I mean, it's very complicated, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm showing Randall Reimer.
Hi there. It's actually his wife, Sherry.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you for taking the time, and you guys have done a wonderful job. We appreciate you. I just wanted to take a moment to say our family would really enjoy or appreciate the kind of the hybrid model, just to adjust as we go, because we're all like in a basketball game, new plays, and it's happening all the time. So our son CJ is just very social, and he knows the way to keep the mask on and things like that, but learning online for him, it was very, very tricky. And so, I'm not sure what that'll look like if we go to a full online thing, but we just wanted to kind of let you guys know we appreciate you. We're hoping for some type of hybrid. So thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Rosenberg, looks like you are up next.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, President Lemmer. So I spoke a lot at the last meeting. I am going to try and be as unemotional as possible. I've sent a letter to each of you. I hope you've taken the time to read it. I know that Ms. Lemmer did send me a response, and I greatly, greatly appreciate the time you took to read my comments. I want to speak to you today not as a physician. I want to speak to you as a parent. I'm just so upset. So if I start crying, I apologize. The teachers who have had me as a mom know I'm an emotional mom. So I have 2 children in this district. I have an 11-year-old super bright kid, and I am not sending him back to school this year. Sorry, I am not sending him back because I don't want him to get sick. And the people on this call who say that children do not get sick are wrong. I'm sorry to tell you you're wrong. I wish it wasn't true. I really wish it wasn't true. I wish it wasn't true that I go to work and I see sick kids. I have not seen them at Sparrow Hospital, thank goodness, horribly sick. But I have been on conference calls because of my life as a pediatric infectious disease physician. My life is my kids, but my separate life. There were over 30 cases reported in April. I sat here at this very kitchen table and listened to people in Detroit talk about 30 kids with this multi-system inflammatory disorder, 8 of whom were on extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. If you're gonna tell me that you think that no kids get this, no kids get sick, and you're that parent with that one kid, I'm sorry. That's not a risk that's worth taking for me. I appreciate the comments from Ms. Camp, sorry, I don't know you by first name, Ms. Camp, and by Ms. J, whose name I can't pronounce with adequacy, so thank you. I appreciate everybody's input, but I just want the people to know who maybe are not seeing this day to day, that kids do get sick, okay? I also would like to point out that we haven't discussed the teachers. And I am friends with a lot of the teachers on here. Some of you know me personally. Some of you just know me from the hallways because I'm a weekly volunteer, sorry, at Wilkshire. Not anymore, but I was. And that, you know, we haven't discussed them. We haven't talked about their health and well-being. We haven't talked about the fact, like Ms. Camp said, that within probably hours of school starting, the schools are going to have to close. Within hours. I don't want the schools to be closed. This is not like a wish to do harm to our children. I'm not trying to do harm. I'm trying to protect them. It is not my wish for parents to be inconvenienced. It is not my wish for my child to not go to school. It's not my wish for my first grader who's super social and wants to be in the forest of friendship next year to tell her she's not going to be in the forest of friendship next year. Because no matter what this board's decision is today, if you make the decision that I do not agree with, I will be pulling my kids from the Hazlitt School District. That's not something I want to do. I love this district. I've enjoyed having my children in this district. I also want you to know that overall, I hear people saying, I want to know what the return to school plan is. And yes, it is fluid, but I want you to realize that we are not going to be ready to go back to school until the greater community at large does what they have to do, and they have not done it. There are people that are going out without masks. There are people who are not social distancing. Until the adults in this community practice safe practices, our children will not be safe to go back to school. And until a vaccine is available, our children will not be safe to go back to school. That doesn't mean we should not be discussing this as the year continues. I want to continue discussing this. You can call me, please. I want to continue to discuss this with you. I want to continue to discuss it with the parents, but I don't want our children to go back unsafely. And I please implore the board tonight to take a look at the statistics, to take a look at the peer-reviewed literature, and to take everybody's information to account. Like I said, I am not a parent who has a special needs child. I am not a parent who needs school for food and safety. I understand that, and I cannot imagine the decisions that you have to make tonight. Please don't think I'm not looking at those. What I am looking about is the health and well-being of our children. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Rosenberg. Next, looks like I have a Patricia Marin.
Hi, this is actually Tanya. I'm married. Tricia.
Oh, I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you speak up or?
Sure. My name's John Yun. Tricia and I are married.
Wonderful.
We have a son in the district. Can you hear me?
Barely, but yes, go ahead.
Okay. And I'm a faculty member at Michigan State, and part of what I work on is how information is used. And really, what I want to talk about isn't position, but position that you're in as school board members listening to all of these data. People that are saying that the data says something are not really accurately representing what data does. Everything that you're hearing here are analysis of data. And the fact that you have people with diametrically opposed conclusions from the same data set suggests that not that some people are wrong and some people are right. People have very different risk profiles and sets of priorities. So,
Sorry, can you repeat that, sir? I so apologize to interrupt, but we're having really trouble hearing you. I think when you face straight on, it's a little. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Is that better? Great.
Yes, much.
I think what it reflects more is that people have a very different set of risks and priorities. So what I'm going to urge the board to do when they report out what their decision is to clarify what their risk and priority profiles are and how they're going to address the issues that other people have raised that are very valid. I mean, you are in a really difficult position. So for example, if you choose to go fully online, I think you really have to articulate who it is you're prioritizing and why you've decided to go online versus hybrid, number one. And number two, how you're going to address the real populations who are going to be affected by this, both in terms of socio-emotional, but also in terms of direct instruction, particularly those kids with special needs or who don't have the resources. And conversely, if you decide to go face-to-face, really talk about how you're going to make that case and who it is you're prioritizing and why. Understanding the framework by which you're making the decision is just as important as understanding the decision that you're making, so that we as parents can figure out how to address it and to really understand what it is that you're prioritizing and why you're moving forward the way you are. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, I actually am not showing any hands up in the computer participant list. Mr. Casson, do we have any emails or phone numbers who have requested that we unmute them?
No, we don't.
Okay, let me just give it another minute for anyone else who has not yet had an opportunity. I received feedback that someone last time was maybe trying to wave or trying to get our attention visually, and that we just don't have enough faces on the screen for that to work, which is why we need you to physically use the raise hand feature. And I've got a raise hand from a Lacey Terry. Lacey?
Hi, my name is Lacey Terry. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am a mom of 5 children. I have 2 children who have IEPs. I will start with the fact that at the end of the year, just like everybody else says, I believe that it was an emergency situation, and I want to praise my children's teachers because they stayed in contact. They did everything to try to help. My children did struggle at the end of the year. I think a lot of parents dealt with that same situation because it was an emergency. It was not something that was planned. There was no structure. And as much as everyone wants structure in an emergency, you don't get structure. But I am also a barber. And so I am hearing tons of people coming and voicing their opinions as far as our children going back to school. And I want to say that I don't think that a lot of the community is aware of these meetings, because I'm hearing a lot more parents coming and saying they don't want our kids going back full-time, face-to-face right away. A lot of people are wanting strictly online. just for the beginning at least. I myself am really struggling with whether or not I want my kids to go back hybrid or to do full-time online. For one, I guess my concern is I will have one child at the elementary school, I'll have two at the middle school, and I will also have two at the high school. If, per se, my elementary school child comes home and she unfortunately gets exposed, I now have 5 children in total that I have to quarantine. I now have to contact the middle school and high school in order for the other classes that my other children have been in to be quarantined as well. So now we are talking, God only knows how many children would be involved in that. But now we're also talking about teachers. Obviously, elementary would hopefully only be one teacher. But when you get into the middle school and high school, how many more teachers are we talking? I know that a lot of people are saying that the teachers are not being taken into consideration. And I believe that that is something we really need to think about as well. I myself am high risk. My husband is high risk. I have 3 children who are high risk. And I have a 70-year-old mother who had cancer last year that lives with us that's high risk. I'm not saying let's force full online the whole year. I really hope that at some point these kids can go back to school and enjoy their friends. But I also do know that them going back to school is not going to be the normal school that they remember. It is going to be 100% different. It's not going to be the social interaction that they are used to. And I think that that may be more of a shock to them than any of us parents are really realizing. At the same time, I understand that full online is going to be a shock as well, but I would hope that maybe there could be screen-to-screen teaching, maybe a morning class and an afternoon class with the teacher, you know, possibly on a Zoom meeting or something, just so that these children are safe. I would hope that that would be every parent's wish, is just that your child is safe. And there are numbers that are going up. Like I said, I'm a barber in Okemos. I have doctors, I have nurses that come in, I have EMTs. These numbers are going up, unfortunately. And I myself am not willing to risk my child's life for a couple hours of them going to school. And like other people have said tonight, the school is getting shut down. So I guess, you know, my idea would be hopefully we could do online for a little while until there comes where we're for our children to go back to quote unquote normal school. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm showing an entry, it just says iPad. If you could introduce yourself when Mr. Casson unmutes you.
I'm Yvette Farrell. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Yvette Farrell. I have a granddaughter who's 7, who went to Wilshire last year, and she'll be going to Murphy this year. And we did wonderful when they closed the school on Seesaw and Zoom. She had classes every day. We got packages in the mail of work. We posted them on Seesaw so they can be graded and everything. So it was a wonderful thing. The class had, on Fridays, had the whole class on Seesaw so they got to see each other. My concern is, for one thing, I don't know what the hybrid is because I'm new in your district. And I'm a high-risk person to get the virus because I'm 64. And she's a high risk too because she has a lot of little health problems. But the online would be good if that's what you decide, and I know which program to get onto because she loves learning. I don't think she would miss social distance because we have a little variety of parents that we do social activities in each yard with the mask and the kids. So she's still getting her social distance. Online would be good because I see that's what the Lansing School District is starting with now. they have to go online, then they have to register and all this stuff. But I'm just figuring out what you're going to do, because I have to come from Lansing to Hazlet to take her to school. And it's no problem because I've been doing it. But I'm just looking at her welfare and my welfare as towards getting sick. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your comments. Next, I'm showing Joe. If you could introduce yourself with first and last name, please.
Hi, I'm Joe Baker. I have two girls that go to Ralia, 3rd and 4th grade. And a lot of the points I want to say are kind of reiterating what we're spoken about before, about thinking of the whole family. I haven't really hid from this whole virus the whole time. I've gone to work every day, do the PPP if we have to. I'm in the military. My ex-wife's in the military, and she's about to deploy. So I'm about to be a sole parent. So I would say at a minimum for the kids, they need the social interaction. Plus, how is that single parent supposed to try to work and do 2 different curriculums, teaching their kids online? Because going back to the spring, I get it. It was a quick emergency fix online, but I would say after 4 weeks, it became a disaster, trying to teach 2 different grade levels, 2 different curriculums. That's basically all I have right now.
Appreciate your comments, sir, and thank you to you and your wife for your service. I'm showing Patty. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Tammy. Thanks for, can you hear me?
You are breaking up.
Tammy, I unmuted.
Oh, yep. If you give your first and last name, please.
Yep, Patty McPhee. Thanks for emailing me back. My 5 points were addressing the MEA's 5 standards that must be met for safe return of school. We all have choices, so I think if you have a fear that your child is at a risk, you obviously should make the choice that's best for your family. Preparedness, people asked a lot of questions today about PPE. You guys addressed that you already have the vendors lined up. Back to Bob Hewitt and Joanne Rowan. The district has done nothing but taken our kids, number one, and staff and teachers' number one health in consideration. I'm sure is the plan. I really appreciated all the work that was done, that was worked to get this hybrid plan together to resources. The one survey said that we have over 99% of our staff or our families have computers and online access. I think that small percentage is very easy to work out if we have to do a hybrid model. The mom that addressed her daughter working, in every workplace, this is a different day. You don't lose sick days and are at risk of getting fired. I'm sure there will be absolutely zero recourse if a staff member is out on sick days because they may be levels too. The MAC is offering camps. Impression 5 is offering camps. There's a lot of things going on out in the world. We're allowed to go to our jobs and work. We're in the medical field. I work at a store. I think when people get out into the world and see us doing safe practices, we're managing it just fine. And I hope that we could get a hybrid and get really missing a lot of the things in her school district, and appreciate everything that you guys have all done. A lot of hours went into that, and sorry about your July. No one had a vacay, I'm sure. Anyway, that's just it. Most of the people addressed most of my concerns already, so I'm just worried about the whole community. We are not at pandemic levels in Hazlet. We are not at all. There's messages from Ingham County Health Department. There was one person in our local hospital and not even ICU. It is fluid process in our administration to keep the Hazlet kids and teachers and staff number one. So I'm all for let's get it back. What happens, and we'll do safe practices. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm showing another iPhone. I do want to confirm that this is a new individual, because we are only able to recognize the individuals once. But if iPhone, if you're a new person, if you could introduce yourself, we're welcome to join us for comments.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Tara Fitzpatrick. I have 2 students in Hazlet. I have soon to be a sophomore in the high school, and I have soon to be 6th grader at the middle school, and her and I have been listening in. There's a lot of concerns. I work in the medical field. I've been working this whole pandemic. I've seen a ton of positive case. I work at the lab. I personally do like the hybrid ideal because my kids are social butterflies. However, I kind of want to ease into it. On the medical perspective, I would like to see online and then relook at it maybe around Thanksgiving and start like a hybrid, and who wants to stay online, maybe they can stay online. I'm not looking at the big picture. My daughter's got some depression from this, which was new to us. So we've been dealing with that from the isolation. I know I have a sophomore who would like to play college basketball one day, and this is obviously hindering that. So yeah, we have to get back. I would like to ease into it though, start off slow and then do like a hybrid and then all into it. So when we start off slow, then at least we know more of we do online, then we do a hybrid. We'll know more of what's going on, how people are affected. My daughter wanted to say a couple words as a student.
So personally, I do like if we revisit maybe around Thanksgiving, but personally, without my friends or seeing actual people, I'm not happy. I get it, my family loves me, but I see them every day, but I also love seeing my friends, new people, and yes, I am a very social butterfly, and without seeing new people or my friends, I'm not happy.
I thought maybe a student should be heard too, but that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you both for sharing your thoughts. Hang in there, sweetie. I've got Michelle White up next. Michelle?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to direct my comments to Superintendent Cook this evening. My biggest concern today is the complete lack of leadership I'm hearing and seeing. This meeting, once again, is a meeting of opinions that quite honestly should not still be heard today. As of today, the decision should have been made by now. And if it's not made by now, that's an even more massive issue. The teachers, the parents, and the students need leadership and to be led right now. It was heartbreaking hearing one of the teachers earlier speak that she can't teach 3 different ways. She can't teach 3 different ways. She needs a plan. It's August already. Somebody needs to give the teachers a plan, needs to give the parents a plan, and let us help prepare our children. We need to see leadership. You need to lead the meeting, lead the teachers, lead the parents, and lead our students today. And right now, my daughter Delilah would like just to say a few words.
Hi, I'm Delilah. I'm going into 5th grade, and today I'd like to speak with the school board about some issues that you really need to address for the kids. So I really think that each kid should have a word to say for their own issues, and I think you should get have another school meeting for me.
No more meetings.
Next week, and no more meetings. And have kid representatives that you like email their parents, have teacher recommendations you think that they would be good to voice for the school board meeting. And thank you for listening to me, please. Thank you.
Thank you both very much for your comments. It's great to hear from you, Delilah. I'm showing another iPhone, again, just to reiterate, hopefully this is a new iPhone representative. If you could introduce yourself with first and last name, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, my name is Dana Jean Holcomb. I have a daughter going into 9th grade, and it breaks my heart that she won't have the first year of high school, normal experience. And she needs to be in school, honestly, just like every other child needs to be in school. I need her to be in school. I'm not a teacher. I'm not qualified to teach. But her safety, my parents' safety is number one. I see my parents withering away, and it breaks my heart. Also, I'm going to digress for a second. For the young lady that said that she was unhappy, my heart breaks. I'm sorry that you're unhappy. We're unhappy, and we're all unhappy. I'm unhappy, and I'm going to pray for you. I wish I could take it away. I'm going to cry. I'm very emotional. The teachers know that. But anyway, for Miss Patty, who said that we're not at pandemic levels, by definition, a pandemic is a worldwide illness. And we have an obligation. Hazlitt stands together, I feel. We have before. Yes, we have differing opinions, but we have an obligation as a community to the communities that surround us. And what happens in Hazlitt doesn't just affect us. It affects other communities. And I would just hope that you as a board would consider not only us, not only parents, teachers, our children, but the surrounding communities and people in our community who aren't paid parents, teachers, and children. And I too am going to echo what the previous two people ago said. I am disappointed that a decision hasn't been made. I feel for teachers. I feel for our students. The longer this takes, the more afraid they get. And I don't want them to live in fear. I do appreciate you. I know that this is an extremely hard decision. But last week, I was under the impression that this was just going to be a decision. I appreciate you taking it seriously, but we just hear opinions today, and we've heard them before. So yeah, we appreciate you, but I think a decision needs to be made, and I hope it's fully online for all of our safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm showing one last current hand up. Oh, we've got two. But just as a reminder, because I'm realizing people have joined a little bit late and may have missed the comments in terms of how public comments are working. So I will reiterate that we are up to 471 participants participating in the meeting this evening. So we obviously recognize and value everybody's engagement in this issue. So again, if you are online and can use the, click the participant icon and hit the button that says raise hand at the bottom of the participant list. If you are not online and you have called in, we're hoping that you can send an email to our technology director, and that would be at hazlitt.k12.mi.us. Webmaster, WEBMASTER, at hazlitt.k12.mi.us. I just want to reiterate that and the process, just because I do want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. So next I'm showing, thank you for your patience, I've got MKL, those initials. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Mindy Lane, and I'm the Chief of Surgery at Sparrow Hospital, and my daughter will be a junior at Hazlitt High School. I want everybody to know, and this is the first meeting that I've been on, that this community has been very successful at flattening the curve, and that can be done with appropriate PPE and distancing of the students. I'm definitely for a hybrid. I think the kids need to see each other. And I also think that online learning is not for most children, and their education is obviously important. I think there's a way to do a hybrid where certain grades and certain classes come at certain times, and you're gonna have to use gyms, and maybe you have to use the Lansing Center. Maybe we have to use bigger facilities where the desks can be spread out and they can maintain their distance and be checked when they come in the door. For example, at Sparrow, nobody's admitted there without having a COVID test. Nobody has surgery. Nobody has an EGD. Nobody comes in the door without being screened. And it's been very effective. And we move thousands of people in and out that door every day. So as a healthcare provider in this community with the child, I think the best solution is for them to have great online courses and the opportunity to come at intervals during the week to get that additional support that they need to see their friends in a safe environment. And it can be done. I know that some of the other parents have stated that they like to ease into it. I would propose that that might be the exact opposite way that I think we should do it. We're at a good pace right now, and we stand the risk of that being much worse in November when flu season hits, and we have flu season and coronavirus at the same time. For this reason, the colleges have made the decision to bring back kids, but to let them go home at Thanksgiving and not return. I think if we're going to do a hybrid model, then we should follow one where we start with it and ease back off of it if we need to into flu season. So that's my mom and my medical perspective.
Thank you very much. I'm showing Amanda Lanier. I don't know if you have the French pronunciation, but Amanda? If we can unmute Amanda, please.
There we go. All right, thank
There
you. Thank you. That's a hard act to follow. So I'm a professor at Michigan State, and I am a teacher and a teacher educator, and I'm actually seeing some of my alumni on the list here who are teachers in the Hazlitt district. And the aspect of this that I wanted to emphasize, as much as I also very much want my children to have the face-to-face experience, my kindergartner is going to have a very interesting perspective on what school is if he doesn't go to school in person this fall, and my rising fourth grader misses his friends. I know some of them are facing the repercussions of not being face-to-face. However, having taught online full-time for many, many years, I think that we are sending the message that online learning is not real learning, that it can't be effective. And I wanted to reiterate that it can be very valuable. In some ways, it can be more personal than the face-to-face. Have opportunities for one-on-one, you have opportunities for differentiation, that there are ways to do that. That said, it places an enormous burden on teachers, and not knowing how to plan and when they will plan. I'm not sure that it's equivalent to 3 times the job, but the planning side, the preparation side is very, very difficult and demanding. And the more notice they have so that they can acquire further trainings, they can put the effort into designing those courses, that they can learn the platforms, that they can find strategies for those things. The more time they have to plan, the better. The more support they have for that kind of work, the better. The more that we can respond in other ways to aspects of the learning process that the children are missing, and yet to make sure that the online experience is as effective as possible. Because even in a hybrid model, it will be primarily online that they will be receiving instruction. That side of it has to be done very, very well. And the more notice, again, the more notice that teachers have in order to do that, hopefully the better prepared they can be to provide a wonderful learning experience to the students. Not the same learning experience, not at all, but still a very valuable experience that can be provided to students of all ages. So I know how difficult that is. I know how hard it is to anticipate that, but I just wanted to emphasize that side of the story, that online learning is real learning, and it can be very valuable and effective, and it can be intimate, it can be connected, it can allow those things to happen. And again, it can respond to a variety of needs in a way that face-to-face may not. So good luck. Teachers do have to address, I know how difficult it is, and I hate to mention it without also offering to help. But I did want to emphasize that side of it.
Thank you very much. I've got Ashley's iPhone. Ashley, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Ashley Mills. I have a soon-to-be fifth grader and a child who should be starting in preschool, but due to everything that's going on, we are choosing to delay the youngest one's start. My biggest concern is children who have emotional needs that are not being met at home. And that might be because they can't see their friends due to distance. I travel quite a distance to get my child to Raleigh. It might be that both parents have to work and they can't set up play dates. They can't do some of the things that have been stated to mitigate some of those social interactions that are needed. My soon-to-be fifth grader is an extremely social person and needs her friends and needs to be around people. She's been stuck with me and my 3-year-old while I've been trying to work over 60 hours a week. My husband gets up at 3:30 in the morning and doesn't get home until after 5 o'clock at night. Trying to juggle a curriculum for my fifth grader now and for my 3-year-old and get what I need to get done has not gone well. And there is no chance for my child to get what she needs from an online program because she cannot interact with the teachers the way that she needs to. I understand that this is a awful virus. I have lived in countries where there are many awful viruses ravaging, and we need to figure out a way for our children to be successful, because if we don't figure that out, they are going to be stuck where they are, and that social interaction and those social aspects will be lost if we don't figure out a way for them to get back together. My kid, unfortunately today, was on her phone so much that she is now upset that she was asked to pick up her room. My child needs in-person teaching because she can't sit down and have the necessary focus for an online program. Her teacher saw this, but there wasn't much that we could do. I understand that we have to mitigate exposure and things like that, but we can't ignore the children who are crumbling around us because there's a chance for illness. Our children need social interaction. They need proper schooling. They need proper teaching. They need what our schools offer that the parents can't offer at home. And I can't take the time off. My husband can't take the time off. So my daughter spent 3 months with her grandmother without seeing me because of the quarantine, without seeing my ex-husband because of the quarantine. And we can't put our children through that again. When I was told that I wasn't allowed to drive down state to see my child because I was going to another household, that's a problem. We need to figure out an effective way to get these children socially interacting safely, yes, and have them taught so that they can excel in life later on. We don't need a whole bunch of stunted children because we as adults couldn't figure out how to deal with this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. I've got a Catherine Bentley.
Hello, I'm Domingo. I'm Catherine's husband. We have 3 kids in the school system. They'll each be attending 3 different schools. I understand the hardship of trying to have an at-home parent and to try to have a parent making money or trying to make ends meet when not being able to send kids to school. However, I just want to add that as a person who's taken up a new job during the COVID experience, going to trainings and trying to understand what people are saying, trying to see what they're doing, trying to actually participate with the 6 feet rules, with the mask over your face, it's very challenging as an adult to be able to do that and to be able to learn. I mean, even with resources and trying to change things, it was challenging. They had to try to put mics underneath the masks and speakers so that people could hear, and we weren't in a big area. Trying to visually see some of the things that people are doing when you're spread so far apart isn't easy either. And I also understand that the kids aren't going to have that much mental focus, especially at younger ages. I just want to keep that in mind. It's very hard to learn, even as an adult at this point in a group. As far as the social interaction, I think we're all there as adults, as parents, as kids, as young adults. And I need to trust, you need to be able to trust everybody. And as I work, I mean, I go out into the public and I deliver packages, and I can't trust everybody to help keep me safe. I have to do everything, you know, like I have to do what I can and hope for the best. I mean, and that's trying to trust my kids. It's trying to trust the school. It's trying to trust other parents and their kids. And it's a large burden. I can understand why you haven't made a decision. Who wants to take that burden of, if something goes wrong, who are we pointing fingers at? Who's going to take the blame? And I think that's unfair to the person who makes that decision. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Looks like we have a Lydia up next. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, this is actually Morgan Pumford. Lydia's one of my 4 daughters. Can you hear me?
What was your last name, please?
Pumford.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have 4 daughters in the Hazlet School District, going to 3 different schools this year, Wilkshire, Raleigh, and middle school. And there's been a lot of great points brought up. I want to state first off that I'm definitely for the hybrid learning. And one of the points that I think has been missed, a discussion point that's been missed, Ashley, I think 2 callers ago mentioned it, but the burden it's putting on parents. And I don't want to, you know, come off as poor me or anything like that, but I was lucky enough that we come from a two working parent household, and I was lucky enough that my job allowed me to work from home during the beginning of the pandemic. And working full time from home and balancing 4 children's schoolwork was it drove me in you know, to my wit's end pretty much. I could not keep up with it, and at the end it fell off. But at the end of last year, it didn't count against our children. It starts to count against our children this year. And that is really hard for me because one of my children has ADHD and she cannot concentrate. She cannot, I had to hold her hand through the entire time, and she won't be able to. She's already behind. She went through DK. And then she went through a couple years, and she's still a reading level behind her school age or her school grade. And yeah, so it's very difficult as a working parent. We've had meetings at work. I am currently still working from home most of the time, but they've specifically said, you know, if you're required to come in, if we switch it to coming in, you know, you guys are going to have to figure out something. And I don't know about everybody else, but my household can't necessarily afford a tutor to come in for 3-4 hours a day, like some people I see posting on Facebook asking for teachers and tutors to come in and specially tutor their children or make sure that they're doing their schoolwork. I can't, you know, afford that one-on-one for all 4 of my children. It's a lot to put on the parents, in addition to everything we've already brought up with the children, because I 100% agree with all that. But that I feel like has been brought up, you know, and repeated. But the burden on parents is something I don't think that people have talked about enough. So I really do appreciate everything that the school board has done and talked about. But yeah, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thought there was another, wait, Okay. I saw a hand pop up. Waters N1.
Yes, hello. My name is Nicole Waters, and I have a son who will be a junior at the high school this year. And I just want to start out by saying that I want to address the person who addressed Superintendent Steve Cook directly. And I want to voice my opinion and say that I think that Superintendent Cook and the board has done an excellent job in providing leadership. Leadership does not mean rushing to be the first to make a decision. Leadership does not mean that you share every single piece of information that you know. Leadership is about thoughtful consideration of all angles, and I feel that Superintendent Cook and the board has done just that. In delaying, what feels like delaying a decision to many people, I think what is happening is that they're looking at the data for as long as they can look at it to make the best decision for everybody involved. It was clear that families in Hazlet want to go back to school, and I am one of those. I am in favor of the hybrid model. I think it's a fair model. You have kids in the building 2 days a week, you clean the building 1 day a week, and the next group comes in for the next 2 days. I think it's a fair way to start the school year, and I hope that's what we lean towards. And as we consider data, I would like to share that at my employer, I'm on the committee to figure out how to bring staff back to work in a safe way. It is not easy. I've been doing this planning since March, and we still have changes in our plan. But when we look at the data and we look at different sources of data, I would ask that you look at COVID Act Now. It's a very simple, straightforward data set. It allows you to look at the state and allows you to drill down by county. And when we look at Ingham County, 4.6 for every 100,000 in Ingham County, the rate of infection is 4.6 people. That is not high. That is actually a very low community spread. And when we look at the positive test rate in Ingham County, we're at 2.1%, which is also very low. So as we assess what we're going to do, I do believe that a decision has already been made. Public comment is about opinion, and I understand that when you have public meetings, you have to have public comment. So people are going to share their opinions. That's what it's for. So I do believe that you've made a decision already. I just hope that you have been as thoughtful as I believe that you have, and that you've looked at the data in a way that shows that we can be safe with precautions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm showing Kelly Jo's iPhone. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I don't know, is it working? Hi,
Yeah,
I'm Kelly Johnston.
You can give your first and last name, please.
I'm Kelly Johnston. I have a special needs child at Ralia, Preston Johnston Keys. And I'd like to say just a couple of things. First of all, I work for Peckham Incorporated at the National Passport Information Center. And we were considered essential. And we've worked through the entire time. There was never a time that we were not reporting to work. And as we progressed, you know, at first it was just, hey, this is going on, we need to be careful. Then we started putting marks on the floor. Then we started doing temperature checks once you went into the building. Then we actually started doing temperature checks at the car while we were driving in. Then we started doing midday checks. We've progressed and we've worked through this entire process. And you know what? You guys are gonna, schools are not gonna have it perfect when we go and we start. But the only way we're gonna learn is to start, is what I believe. You know, we will learn and progress as we go through. And I just wanted to say that to me, that's important. And also my son is very special needs and he excels in person. He did not, the remote learning did not work for him. So, but I just wanted it to be said that I know it's not going to be perfect when we start, and you're going to get new plans and you're going to modify them as you learn what works and what doesn't work. And thank you.
Thank you very much. I am not seeing any hands up in the screen. Mr. Casson, have we received any emails or other messages?
We do have 2 email messages that came into the webmaster account. Would you like me to read them?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, the first one is from Melinda339. Her subject is question, and her comment is, my child will be going to the Wilson Talent Center. If we go to remote, how will this affect the Wilson kids? I got an email telling me they will be face-to-face. Will the bus still run for the Wilson kids? And then the next email came from a Michael Miller. His comment is school board comments, school of choice. And his message is, I just want to give my perspective as a potential school of choice parent. We have a student at Okemos, and based on their decision to postpone face-to-face instruction, we are currently looking for other options. We moved to this area with a presumption of best in state schools. Our daughter requires social interaction and in-person instruction. I will offer some additional comments as bullet points. There are many other schools in Michigan offering in-person hybrid instruction. Why are some school districts able to adapt to fluid situations of COVID and offer safe in-person or hybrid, and others are not? Our children's mental and social development is as important as medical services and food supply chains. I want to understand why our doctors, practitioners, nurses, food line workers, truck drivers, police officers expected to work in a safe environment using proper PPE, but school instructors are not. Decisions must be based on data and whatever plan is adopted. I hope that real statistics and data sets are shared along with this decision. Thank you for your time. And those are all the comments I've received.
Great, thank you very much. So it looks like we have gotten through public comment. Thank you again, once and all, to everyone for taking your time to join us this evening.
Tammy, someone's waving.
I don't, they need to raise their hand.
I know.
If you're waving in your screen, I can't see you. I literally only have 6 screens that are visible to me. Please go to the participants, click that, the little image with the people. It has 490, well, it said 496 a second ago. We lost 2 people. Click that, open it up, and there's a box that says raise hand. I'll try to give you enough time to do that, but that's the only way I can acknowledge you. I'm showing Christine Degnan, if that's how you pronounce it. Mr. Casson, if you could unmute Christine, please. Christine Degnan. And Christine, there's going to be a box that pops open. And it's going to say the I don't know, moderator or somebody. The host would like to unmute you. There you go. Looks like you're unmuted now.
Okay, thank you. Actually, my name is Monica Del Castillo. I am a parent of a junior going into the high school. And I have a couple of thoughts. One is related to other institutions that have done their best to keep their students, and in particular their student athletes, safe. I'm thinking of Michigan State University as an example. They created a pretty rigorous protocol to keep their student athletes safe. Michigan State also has the luxury of having a lot of resources to put into an effort like that. And despite amazing plans to keep their student athletes safe and spending a lot of money in regards to other resources to make that happen, it took just a matter of a couple of weeks before some of their players tested positive. And so if you have an institution like Michigan State who has invested a lot of time, energy, and money to make that environment safe, I'm not sure that Hazlitt has all of the resources available. In other words, unlimited money and unlimited donors to create that kind of a safe environment. So I have some real concerns. Not that people are not going to do their best. Of course they are, but I have some concerns that we don't have the resources to make that happen. The other issue that I want to bring up is that administrators at the high school and the middle school, for example, don't even have access to the building, physical access to the building until the end of August, which is about a week before classes start. And so the expectation then would be upon staff and teachers to try to make those buildings safe in a matter of a week, when other institutions, other places of work they've been working at it for months. And I know that Nicole mentioned that she's been on a committee to bring students back. She and I both work at Lansing Community College, and the college made the decision back in March that it was real likely that we were not going to go back to any kind of face-to-face for regular academic courses until the end of October, November. And then the last point that I want to make is really kind of more personal. Hazlitt has had a number of folks, administrator, teacher, and a couple sets of parents who have passed away over the last year. And I've talked to a number of parents and teachers and administrators who they're not sure that they could deal with another loss. And my fear is that if, for some reason, God forbid, something happens and we lose another child, or we lose a parent, or we lose an administrator, or we lose a teacher, what the impact of that is going to be on the people that have to hold it together. And so I don't know that that's a piece that has really been discussed, but being a counselor as I am, that's very real. I mean, we still have, kids who are grieving their parents. We still have teachers who are grieving their administrators, and we have teachers who are grieving their peers. And so I would hate to see that something happens and we have to deal with that again. So I would, really, I know you guys are doing the best that you can, and I really appreciate you not just jumping into something, but that mental health piece in regards to the mental health of our Hazlitt community, I think really needs to be considered as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm showing Trevor Goldberg.
This is actually Terry Goldberg here.
I thought it might be. Hi, Mr. Goldberg.
Hey, how are you? You know me. So I have a special needs individual who will be a senior this year. So he's extremely social and did not and will not do well online. But I guess, I've listened to this since 6 p.m. and everybody has, great thoughts and great information. I think that the information that's out there for everybody is just so inconsistent. We don't know how we all are affected every day and the testing and everything. But I guess, to me, it seems a little simple that if 67% of us agreed or voted to send our kids back to school, then we are willing to take the risk and do whatever it takes to make sure that our kids go to school in a safe manner and do what's necessary to have them safe all day. And if the 33% don't want to do that, don't want to send their children to school, and that's okay too. They have the online option. But again, all of us, 67% of us, the majority, 2/3 majority, voted to go back to school. So that's our goal. And I'm pretty sure as a community, if we bring parents in, extra parents to do testing or whatever we need to do for the kids, whether it be thermometer or whatever, we'll definitely pitch in and do what we can to make sure the kids are safe every day. But again, I go back to 2/3 majority. We all voted to go back to school, so that's why we voted. So that's where we're at. That's where I'm at. That's my opinion.
Thank you very much. It's great hearing from you. I've got Jamie Prevost is up next. Looks like, Jamie, you are unmuted if you'd still like to speak.
Yes. Hi. I missed the first hour of the meeting. Sorry, I had the time wrong, so I didn't get to hear everyone's comments, but just thought I'd speak again. I spoke at the last meeting, and I thought this meeting we'd have more information available. It'd be very helpful to know how the virtual is going to differ from spring. Obviously, we know there's going to be a good part virtual, so planning and understanding that so we know if the virtual is going to work, for our children, or if we have to opt out and do some kind of homeschool. But I realize the school has to, modify. I liked how one speaker, that worked at Peckham, said how they're constantly modifying. I get that. For the kids that really need to go in person, although my son does, we're not doing that at this time. But I will mention, I did sign up my son for the camp several people have talked about, but that camp differs a lot from school in several ways. That camp has a maximum of 4 classes in the building, maximum of 10 kids in each class. And just so you know, they did have to shut down for a week, so everyone had to find alternate care. Now imagine, that wasn't even with a case. They had no positive cases. They had no even people testing. They just did it because of the uptick in cases. Obviously, the school district's probably going to run different, but they're going to have a lot of different things they come across. I hope this district's able to adjust and modify, but I think people expecting their kids to go in all the time, there's going to be bumps. We could have an uptick in cases. There are people not always following the plan, but I hope the school district takes that into consideration, especially for the teachers that, don't want to teach in person. I don't know, because I haven't heard any of that. But yeah, I'm interested in hearing the virtual plan just to see if we need to make alternate arrangements. I think I'm very glad the district's going through, listening to all the people, but it would just be helpful to, hear more concrete plans for the up and coming school year. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm showing Daria Lefebvre.
Hi everybody. Thanks so much. I really appreciate everybody's hard work. I know it has been a challenging time for us all. I just wanted to offer a couple of thoughts. My son is going to be starting 2nd grade at Raleigh, and my son is one of those kids who really benefits from face-to-face instruction. I have to say, for my child, I'm not really concerned with his academic growth, but I'm more concerned with his social and emotional growth. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the parents, I kind of mirror a lot of parents' concerns in terms of what we're going to do and how we're going to do this. One thing that I'm experiencing right now is this uncertainty and my inability to prepare my son for what's to come. And I think that a lot of parents could probably feel the same thing. Not only is it anxiety for the parents, but it's also for the children, because they are looking forward to going back to school, but I can't even tell my son if he's actually going to go back to school or what it's going to look like. And that's really, I think, a big challenge right now, is trying to figure out how to break this down and how to prepare them. The other concern I have is in terms of technology, and that is, I don't know, I also missed the first hour of the meeting, but I wanted to share, I know there's a lot of challenges with technology, and in the spring, we have, my son has an iPad, but a lot of the things we're not playing. And so my concern is, well, if we choose virtual learning, will he have access to a computer that he'll be able to engage on that will be compatible with the things that the teachers are going to be doing? I also come from a family of teachers, and so my heart constantly aches for the things that they're experiencing as well, because I can't imagine being in their shoes. I'm not in their shoes, but I can't imagine what they're experiencing in terms of having to figure out how they're going to try to, teach kids who are doing virtual or teach kids who are doing half and half or whatever. And I haven't really heard from the teachers a lot. And I think that would be one thing that I would really like to know, is kind of their opinion and their thoughts on how that's going to work, or what they're thinking about this. I recognize that as a parent, my responsibility is to my child, but I also want the teacher who is teaching my son to be comfortable in the environment and to give it, I know that they do, but I think that considering their thoughts and putting them in a position having to split or figure out which half is going when and how, and providing education virtually to half of the kids or whatever. I mean, my brain just literally explodes thinking about how that's going to work for them as well. And I don't want to, we already have enough stress in our lives as is. So I just want to thank you all for working so hard on figuring this out. And I really, really hope that we can get something, and that we as a community can really rally behind the decision that is made. And I hope that, I know that nobody's going to be 100% happy. There's always going to be a percentage of people who are not, and there's always going to be a percentage of people who are. But I really hope that as a community, we can come together and just really acknowledge that we're here for our kids, we're here for the teachers, for the administrators, for the staff, that we all want to stay healthy, but we also want to make sure that our children are safe, and that they can move through this and live through this and work through this, so that they can grow up and look back to this and know that, they've gone through this, they've learned a lot, and we were there behind them every step of the way. So I just want to thank you all, and I want to invite the community to please respect the administration and the decisions that are made. I know that you will consider our thoughts and our hopes, and we're going to be behind you in that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. David Trevino, showing you're up next.
Am I unmuted now?
Yep, go right ahead.
Hey. Thanks for all the information shared and taking the time to weigh everybody's opinions. I just wanted to make sure to get in there. It's been raised a couple times about the references to the survey and how things were overwhelmingly in favor of a return to schools. Well, I'm one of those parents too that, I have two kids, one in middle school, one in high school. And of course there are difficulties. There are hardships to raising helping the kids through their schoolwork, making sure you're available for their care. By the way, I'm the only parent in the home too. So, I'm sure there are others there, but that's the situation. And of course, when we get the survey, I myself put down that I was in favor of either going back or going hybrid. But I wanted to make it really clear that along with that, and I don't think I'm alone of the parents that responded on there, the presumption is always that we would have a well thought out plan in place, and that we felt that it was going to be a safe manner to do it. And so I think if we try to drive that point of that survey down too much, we miss what was really to be, what we were really looking for is the kind of the feel of the community. And myself, I'm in there voting for it. And right now I'm hearing an awful lot of, a lot of unanswered questions. If we decide to go online, or if we decide to go in person or the hybrid, there are definitely going to be questions to answer for any of them. But right now we don't have that decision. And we really need to get to that point so we can move forwards. Now, looking around us, schools every couple of days now you're seeing new announcements in the news. The schools are starting back, and they're choosing to go online for at least a couple of months at the beginning. And I would just say, if we are not in a place where we are sure, I don't think anybody's really willing to make that gamble. Or you hear a lot of people say, well, we'll take that chance. But if you really think about what that chance is, I don't think anybody's willing to take that chance. So I don't know. I'm looking at other schools, similar areas. We've seen upticks in the area. And these schools are going on the record saying they're going to start in virtual and give themselves a little more time to assess how they can return. I don't know why that's not a good option for us, in all honesty.
Thank you very much for your comments and your time. Next, I'm showing Michelle Brock. Michelle should be unmuted.
Hi, yes, I'm listening to the Zoom session via a car. I had to pull over so I could make some comments, sorry. I am the mother of 3 children in the district, and I want to start off by saying how much I appreciate that I live in a community where so many families are coming together because we care so much about our children, and that I am so grateful to the administration, to the board, paraprofessionals, teachers, staff, the janitorial, custodial workers, and our kitchen staff, who I know are all eager to support our children. That is why I moved to this district, because of this love that we all have and this commitment we all have to our children's education. And I just want to, having been in and out of signal, I apologize if this has been shared, or I don't know that I have anything new to contribute, but I do want to express that I am a family who originally filled out the survey sort of hopeful and optimistic and said I wanted hybrid, but now I would vote differently. And so some of that percentage that we might be relying on, just like all of the data out there about how to best teach and how to approach this issue, is a moving target. And so I share that too, because I realize the board is having to make a decision based on moving data. And I also want to share that I think that there's a disproportionate impact on our Black and brown children in the district for a number of different reasons. And I think COVID is highlighting both the impact that this can have on the health of families, as well as the mental health of families. And issues of remote work bring about issues of childcare and access. But I think this is highlighting that as a community, as all of us listening here tonight, we ought to be focusing on issues of mental health for our parents, for the teachers, and for our children. The reason I wanted to return to school is for that opportunity to connect with other children, but I think maybe there might be another way to think about that mental health unmet need, or that fear that we have, maybe in a unique and different way, and maybe in a way that focuses on the broader equity of children in our district. And I hope that our issue and our highlight on the needs of all of our children to learn about racial equity doesn't get lost in the many decisions and the weight that is on this decision tonight. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm showing Jillian Kingdon is next.
Yes, hello?
Hi, go right ahead.
Oh, yes. My name is Audrey, and I have two children in the district. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is it Audrey Kingdon?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on my daughter's phone.
Nope, it happens all the time.
I just wanted to voice, I mean, I did all of the questionnaires, and, you know, I think optimistically it'd be great if they could go back in person or in some sort of hybrid. But I think at this point, especially for, you know, I can only speak for my family, but as a single parent who works in healthcare, the risk of my children going back and then exposing me would be really high. And that's something that could obviously affect me keeping my job. I mean, going possibly 2 weeks or longer every time that I'm potentially exposed to get tested, to make sure I don't have symptoms. For me, at this point, I feel that it's best to err on the side of caution and, you know, make sure that we're in a place where we're not going back and forth, and where we're not going in person and then realizing that we can't sustain that and having to backtrack. So that's just my piece that I would like to say. And, you know, I'm looking forward to having just any decisions so that we can move forward and plan our lives. But I just want to thank you for, you know, allowing all of us to contribute and give input. I appreciate that.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Next up, Gemma Mack. Go ahead, Gemma.
Can you hear me?
You can.
Hi, my name is Jenna McClendon, McLendon, and I have a two children, one that will be a third grader at Murphy, and one that will be starting in kindergarten. I will keep my comments brief. My main concern is that people keep on talking about survey numbers and often leave out that the staff level of comfort was 66% of teachers and staff wanted online, and that the concern of the staff versus returning in person of going back to school, 77.9% cited health and safety as their biggest challenge or concern. I feel like teachers' voices are getting lost, and they are the people that will be actually in the buildings and dealing with this on a daily basis and putting their lives at risk potentially, which is nothing they signed up for when they went to school to be a teacher, I'm certain. It's important that their voices are heard, and that if we're talking about, you know, the numbers and the voting and all of that, that the people that are the professionals in this situation are being heard, expressing their concerns as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not showing any additional hands. Mr. Casson, did we receive any additional emails?
We have received one more email, and I will read it. It is from Kin Sing Lee. The subject is comments, and the remarks are, thank you so much for organizing these meetings to let everyone voice their opinions. This is Sing Lee. We have a kid who will start kindergarten this year. First, I think no matter what the decision is, the teachers are going to be the one who will be working a lot to navigate this situation. And I'm wondering whether there is anything that could show appreciation to them. I am wondering what the policy in place is to protect our teachers. What if there is someone not in compliance to the rule? With what happened in Georgia's summer camp, it is absolutely clear kids, like adults, will transfer the virus as effectively as adults, but also there could be serious consequences in terms of health. One of the reasons that Ingham County has low numbers of cases is a majority of undergraduates are not staying in the area, as well as the government shutdown. I would suggest a slow start to see what will be going on when all the MSU graduates are back to the city before letting kids back to the schools. We just simply don't have the data. I would also like to suggest for spring semester, if the decision or plan could be decided earlier. With so many unknowns, there will be no perfect solution, no matter what the decision will be. With the plan and decision decided earlier, everybody can contribute to make the plan much better, and it will be better for the teachers as well. I hope these help. Sing. And that is all I have.
Excellent. Well, so no more email comments. I'm not showing any hands. We're at the 2-hour and 1-minute point, which coincidentally is about where we ended off with public comments last week. For my fellow board members, do we need to take a point of personal privilege, or do we want to forge ahead?
I can forge ahead, Tammy.
Agreed.
We're all good?
Yes.
Okay. So then we are at our discussion item of the reopening school plan, and Mr. Cook has materials to share with us. And I believe he and or Ms. Gillings are going to do a screen share. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, while they're getting that set up again, thank you to all who participated in public comment tonight, as well as those who participated last week. It was great to have, I think, a majority of new people this evening to contribute to the comments we received last week. And then, of course, that includes all of the communication we've received via email that Secretary Wheeler mentioned earlier, which did include significant communication from our teachers and staff as well. So Mr. Cook, you're up.
Thank you, President Lemmer. Before we get to my recommendation that I'm going to make to the board this evening, I just wanted to start out with just a few comments. First and foremost, a thanks to all our staff who have worked countless hours developing plans for our learning plans, and the support of the Board of Education along this process. This has been quite a journey over the last several months as we've tried to look at all the options available for our district, and I just appreciate all the time that our staff has put in to get to this point tonight. So in addition to that, I want to thank our parents and community for sharing their thoughts and concerns with our administrative team and the Board of Education. I know we've heard a lot of public comment between this meeting and the last meeting and all the emails that we've received. It's always important to get feedback from our community, so I just wanted to give thanks to all those folks who took the time to give us their feedback in making the decision moving forward. And then I'd also want to point out, as it's been said many times by a lot of our comments that we've received, is that there's no decision that will fully meet the needs of every family in our district. And so we're going to make every attempt. I believe we have the best teaching staff around, the best support staff around, and I believe we're going to make every effort to provide quality education during this very unprecedented time that we're facing right now. So my recommendation for the school year for 2020-21 is to begin fully online for instruction. What we would propose to do that over the next several weeks during the month of September, that we would continue to evaluate the COVID data and look at the conditions that are in place at that point during the month of September. We have 2 board meetings coming up in September, and we would report out, bring both of those meetings of where the data is and where we are in terms of the potential of coming back. And hopefully that we would I would bring a recommendation to the Board of Education no later than October 12th. That's our first meeting in October, to determine if we can continue remote learning, or that we would begin the process to move to face-to-face, some type of hybrid model. Realizing that we don't know what's going to happen over the next several weeks, so we could go back to phase 3 and everything could be shut down, or we could go in the other direction. So really it's my challenge to look at the data and really evaluate over the next several weeks where we're at before we bring that recommendation of potentially bringing students back into our buildings. So as I look at the rationale for beginning and starting of school fully online, obviously number one, and I think that's been expressed by everyone tonight, is the health and safety of our students and our staff. So that was really our top priority in terms of making the decision. We want to make sure that we can ensure the health and safety of our students and staff. And the other piece is really our challenges that we've faced in preparing our buildings to comply with all the safety measures that the governor has outlined in her roadmap plan. We went through a lot of those at the last meeting, but we have some significant challenges as to making sure that we can comply with all those measures. We spent countless hours looking at our operational plans and how we could deal with social distancing and all those things that we need to do to bring kids safely and our staff back to school. And we just feel that the challenges really outweigh risking bringing anyone back, or bringing students back into the building at this point. And then the last point is really we want our staff to be able to be proficient at educating our students with one instructional model. As so eloquently said by, I think her name is Mrs. J, you know, we really want to ease the burden on our staff. We know that we're really good at in-person instruction. Hybrid or online instruction is going to be challenging, and so we want to give our teachers a chance to really get good at this. We believe that we do. We spent a lot of time looking at all the options, and we believe that we're going to get there, but we need some time to be able to prepare for that. I just want to talk just briefly about the curriculum and the delivery. Our classes under the online method will be taught by our Hazlet faculty. It will be our Hazlet Public Schools curriculum, and it will be aligned to the state standards. We believe that this will allow a smoother transition back to face-to-face in the hybrid model. Students will remain with the same teachers when they transition back to face-to-face learning. So all the students will start out with their teacher, and if we are able to go back in person at some point, they will continue to receive instruction from those same teachers. We talk about electronic devices, that we are going to move to one-to-one and provide electronic devices to all of our students. We still are working on a delivery model of what that will look like, and we will also evaluate those families that need internet access or have challenges in that area so that we're able to give access to all of our families. In terms of the learning management systems, we will use both Seesaw and Google Classrooms. Seesaw will be used at DK, kindergarten, and first grade, and Google Classrooms will be used at 2 through 12. We will have accountability features in place. Attendance will be taken, grades will be earned, and report cards will be issued in line with what we currently do in-person instruction. Instruction will be delivered both synchronously and asynchronously for all 5 days of the week. One of the things that we heard loud and clear from our parents, that if we go to an online model, that they want some form of in-person instruction, or at least live instruction, I should say. And so we've built that into our schedule, and we believe that we can make that happen in this learning plan.
Steve, can I ask a quick question? Sorry. Sure. So you say that attendance will be taken, but then there will be synchronous and asynchronous. How will we be handling attendance if a student isn't able to participate in the synchronous learning and they have to watch videos later asynchronously?
So really, it's just making sure that students are being able to receive those lessons. Susan, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I can. So we have to follow the 50D pupil accounting manual guidelines, and there are provisions in there that allow us to count if they've completed assignments, and if we can accurately record that they've done those on certain days of the week. So we'll use those guidelines as we process how attendance will be taken for all students.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we will continue to offer electives in special areas. They will be included in our weekly schedules, which we'll share with you in just a few minutes. Classes will include both group instruction, whole group instruction, and small group instruction. And we will continue to provide professional learning and collaborative opportunities for our teachers so that they can continue with rigorous and aligned instruction for all students. Other special features, we will continue to service students who have IEPs and 504 plans. Those plans will be reviewed by the case managers and adjusted as needed. We will continue to provide the ancillary supports for those special needs students as needed. We will also provide opportunities for our English language learners and our at-risk students through the MTS programs that we currently offer to our students. Extracurricular activities and athletics, we will continue both. In terms of the clubs and student groups, we're going to try to continue on as much as we can with those opportunities because we know they're important to students. And a lot of that will depend upon what phase we're in and how we can potentially offer those opportunities to students moving forward. In terms of athletics, we are currently following the guidelines recommended by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, and we will continue to do that moving forward into the future. We hope to offer some additional in-person instruction for both our special ed and 504 students and for our students who need interventions and who require additional supports. So we're still working through how this is going to work. They will be offered on a limited and voluntary basis, but we want to make sure that we can provide at least some services, and hopefully some of those may be in person. We've actually did a survey with our special ed staff, and a lot of them were very willing to come in and provide some of those services in person to those students with special needs. So I just want to quickly walk through the schedules for what online learning will look like. I know that a lot of folks have expressed desire to see what that looks like. We've been working on that over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to turn this portion over to Mrs. Gillings to kind of walk through what that schedule will look like at the various levels. I do want to stress that these are still in development and that we will hopefully be finalizing these schedules in the next several days.
So our potential high school schedule looks like a block schedule format, and teachers would have a set schedule similar to the school day that students currently would have, but only in block format. And we would have synchronous learning during the during the regular class periods on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesdays would be all asynchronous learning, except for the Viking time advisory that we are going to build in for additional supports for students. Small group and individual help will be done as needed during both the synchronous and asynchronous learning times, depending on teacher schedules. So as plans roll out, teachers will have these set schedules on their Google Classrooms, and parents will be notified and students will be notified of what times they need to log on for synchronous learning and what times will be available for small group or individual help. A lesson posting schedule will be provided to parents and students. Lessons will potentially be posted twice a week for students to have access to, but we want to keep the learning as cohesive as possible and similar to what you would see in in-person instruction. And we definitely will have our mental health check-ins. They'll be ongoing for all students throughout the day and throughout the school week, even on Wednesdays if necessary. So, because that's an important piece of our plan. Middle school schedule looks very similar to high school schedule because we do have shared staff between those two buildings. So middle school is exploring a block schedule as well. And if you notice on the left-hand side, most of those things are similar to what we just talked about with the high school, that teachers would have synchronous learning Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Wednesdays would be all asynchronous or on their own learning, except for the Viking advisory time. Small group and individual help will be available as based on teacher schedule for synchronous or asynchronous learning time. Those will be posted. Lessons will be posted in a schedule to provide with parents, and we will have mental health check-ins.
Susan, sorry, I'm the one who keeps interrupting.
Yep.
I just want to be clear. These are the proposed schedules that would be whether, like, to start with all online, but it would be the same schedule when we return for a hybrid.
That is what we're looking at, is to try to get a schedule that can easily transition into hybrid. I'll just talk about a deviation from that when we get to the elementary schedules.
Thank you.
Susan, can I ask a question too?
Yes.
Sorry, Karen. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay. So I see the 2-hour block schedule, and I'm trying to see, how do you envision teachers using that time to kind of help them out too? Because usually when you do a block schedule, you teach the lesson to the whole group, and then there's some guided practice, and there's some time for some independent work or small group. So would some students kind of transition off or out of the class while others remain with the teacher in that small group setting as they do the guided practice or independent work? So that it wouldn't, is that kind of what you're envisioning?
Yes, we're in development of all of those smaller pieces of these block schedules. But yes, that's what we're envisioning, that there will be some whole groups, some small groups, some individual, depending on the course and what the teacher, what the departments deem is appropriate for their subject areas as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen?
Tracy answered my question much more artfully than I would have done.
Any other questions on the secondary schedules?
No.
Okay, moving on to elementary.
So on the elementary schedules, we have decided that right now we're in conversations about whether our off day, whether the day for all the synchronous or the asynchronous learning would be on Wednesday or Friday. We know that it needs to be on Wednesday when we are back in hybrid mode, because that would be a cleaning day as well, the deep cleaning day. But while we're in fully virtual, which is our proposal tonight, we would like to move that part of the schedule to Friday, because for our younger learners, Friday is more of a day that we can do some of our testing, our progress monitoring, and the pieces that are really important, and give them a continuous week flow to their schedule. So Monday through Thursday would be synchronous lessons that would be live during their core subject blocks. Some of those might be whole group, and some of those live lessons might be small group. Interventions will be done during social studies and science and or creative arts. This is at Murphy. Ralia's schedule will look slightly different during the day. Morning meetings will be live in whole class. And again, we will have mental health check-in times to incorporate into the schedule, so that we're constantly keeping an eye on our students and their needs. So the days would be Monday through Thursday would be the synchronous and asynchronous together, and then Fridays would be primarily asynchronous with some progress monitoring and testing that may need to be done in live face-to-face or live instructional.
Susan and Steve, I had a question.
Yes.
When we talk about live meetings and live instruction, is this solely from the teacher's secondary location, wherever that may be, or is this going to also possibly be actual in the classroom live instruction? I imagine without the students there that it'd be easier to physically distance, and I'm assuming that some might need facilities and things to conduct a better curriculum that might only be in a classroom.
Yeah, so we haven't 100% finalized those plans either, but we are thinking that teachers would be in the classroom, in their own classrooms, obviously by themselves, but conducting the live portion of their lessons and meeting in those small groups as well from their classrooms.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Susan, it's Tracy again, sorry. I'm sure that if parents there are still a lot of parents on the call, if they hear the word live, they might be freaking out that they are working and this adds a burden on them. Can you explain, if a parent or a child is not able to log in at all times at the live sessions, what their options will be?
Yeah, so we also plan on recording sessions that students can access at a later time, so that they can watch the lesson and they can do the work that goes along with it, and then hopefully be able to have some touch-in points. If you notice on this schedule, at the end of the day, there's independent work and office hours built into the schedule, so that students could ask questions or have some of that time to get clarification as needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Susan, this is Tammy. I had a similar question in terms of concerns from parents about if they have, and we've heard several people this evening have multiple students across multiple buildings. I think one solution you've addressed by offering a device per student. So it's not like a family has to fight over the one computer, or, so that is an issue. It sounds like we're trying to mitigate. But I also think if there are concerns, it sounds like if you miss the live session, you're not out of luck. You still will have that opportunity to go back.
Correct. Correct. And also the nice thing about recording it and uploading it in their Google Classroom or on the platform that they're using is that even for students that attend the live session, if they need to go back and rewatch it to get clarification on certain things, they are more than welcome to do that.
This is Josh again. I understand, this is still in development. It says that right on the slide. So if a student is not able to see the live instruction, what avenues would they have for live interaction with their teachers if they need more help and things to that matter?
So again, we're still working out all of those details, but at this point on this schedule, the office hours would be an opportunity for that. There will also probably be some time maybe on Friday that we could build in some of those office hours if they need that extra help. But our teachers really go above and beyond all the time. And I know that they, if an email is sent with questions or whatever, they will respond to those in a timely manner to get support to students. So
okay. I didn't know if there was talk of if any evening office hours or anything like that would be available for people that are on a schedule where daytime doesn't work.
Yeah, we haven't totally hammered that out yet. We have to talk about that and make sure that that's a potentially something that we might be able to do. So we will, once we get all those details together, we will definitely share those out with families so they know what's available.
Greg, go ahead.
I just want to expound a little bit on what President Lemmer was talking about and the number of devices, if we are going to be looking at one for each student there. I know in some of our earlier meetings, we have talked about having enough devices, Chromebooks out there to meet the need, but how confident are we that we have met that need as we sit today with our student counts and the needs?
Yeah, we have enough devices for every single one of our students.
Mm-hmm.
Currently in our inventory of Chromebooks.
And does that cover smaller children as well, or what will that look like for them?
So we are in conversations about our youngest learners, RK and 1 students, to decide what device that they will use and what our budgets will allow as well.
Okay.
So I'm going to move into the Raleigh schedule.
So the Raleigh schedule looks very similar in format to what Murphy looked like, except, ELA blocks and math blocks might be in a slightly different spot. But again, they're looking at the same type of model where Monday through Thursday during the fully online portion of our program, that Monday through Thursday would be the instructional pieces and Friday would be more the asynchronous learning for students and progress monitoring and testing and those types of things. So just slight differences in how the day looks from 8:30 to 8:45 and so on throughout the day, but still with the built-in office hours and all the core subject areas and creative arts in their schedule. So this schedule is very similar to what Murphy will offer as well.
This is Tammy. This might be going into the weeds a little bit. I'm trying to channel an elementary school parent who might be looking and worried about like those, in one case, couple hour-and-a-half blocks, and then they're all consecutive, maybe little couple-minute breaks in between. Can you clarify the expectation? It's not that we're asking our kids to sit in front of the computer all day and be talked at virtually, but portions of those blocks will be live. I think it's probably what Josh was asking about earlier, that sort of the small group, the individual work, and a lesson, that's all combined in that hour-and-a-half block.
Yeah, that's correct. And parents will get a more detailed schedule once those are laid out by teachers and how their day will look. So they will know when students should log on and when they could potentially go off the computer or stay for a small group or whatever their plan is for students. So we will have very detailed plans to give to parents based on teachers and what students will do in each classroom. So no, our intent is not for them to sit in front of the computer all the time. That's why some of that asynchronous learning will be there, but also teachers will be available to help students when they're struggling with those pieces as well.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome. So Wilkshire has a similar schedule to the other elementaries as far as theirs just looks slightly different. They are going to, Team A and Team B on here for each of these is just groups of teachers that will work together during their planning and preparation for all of their work. But again, students will have a morning meeting and core academic blocks that they will have live lessons and some of that asynchronous work that will happen. They will also have creative arts built into their schedule, but some their interventions will be done during both the math and reading blocks, and then wherever works best for the group of students that need the interventions. Morning meetings will be live. Those will generally be done in whole class format for students. And again, we will have our mental health check-ins incorporated into the schedule so that we can keep track of our students and their learning needs as we progress through this online environment.
So Susan, a quick question, and just because I have a first grader, I was looking at the first grade, and like in first grade Team B, it has social studies, science, but I don't see that anywhere in Team A.
Yep, on the bottom from 2:30 to 3.
Yeah, I mean, there are just some differences even just with the first grade, or no, it's down lower. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, you know, there's one block 10:30 to 11 that's blank in Team B. So just, and I know these are still in development.
I don't
but
see
just
a blank block in Team B.
On the last day there.
Yeah, the 10:30 to 11.
First grade to Team B, yeah. It doesn't have, it just has the time and not the subject.
On first grade Team B?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yep. That was probably just when we transferred the information over from the regular thing to the slide, probably copy over. So.
And it doesn't have, I think what it was on Team A, there wasn't a morning meeting. There was the Rise and Shine, but then it goes right into creative arts. So, and again, I know this is all in draft and development. I just want to make sure the groups are working together.
Creative arts is always flexible in an elementary schedule because of how many creative arts teachers you have at certain times of the day.
Okay.
Yeah. And with Wilkshire, we share creative arts teachers. They come from Murphy and Ralia. So, so different times of day, we have more creative arts teachers in the building, and sometimes we have less. So that's why they're never at the same time.
Hey Molly, I'm just assuming that that's another transfer problem here. That there's just a couple inconsistencies.
There's just not a Monday morning meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's because it says creative arts back to back there. I would assume that first one is supposed to be morning meeting.
Right.
Yeah, we will clean that up.
And I think it's just echoing what was said before about the elementary. I think when looking at this slide first as, you know, mom of a first grader, that's a whole lot of time on and off a screen. And again, going back to some of the comments that parents made today about time supervising or helping their students, you know, these are not typically learners who are able to do this independently, particularly for long blocks of time. And so I just think, you know, how this is set up and the details are going to be really important.
Yeah.
Because I know it's something that I'm concerned about.
The Wilkshire schedule is the one that they are developing is very detailed with all of the intricate details. But if we were to put that on this slide, no.
Right. Yeah. I think it's just, it's knowing at least my incoming first grader cannot, she's not ready to use this technology independently, and especially not for a full day. And so it's just hearing that concern, and we heard it from other parents about the support that the parents are going to have to provide and what that's going to look like. And, you know, I'm lucky that both my husband and I have been able to work from home, but we still have work. And so it's just making sure that we recognize that these kind of schedules are going to be challenging, especially for our learners who can't learn independently on their own in an online environment.
Right. I get that. Yeah.
Anything else on the Wilkes-Barre schedule? Questions? So in terms of supporting social and emotional learning, we will continue to provide support in these areas. We're going to attempt to implement mental health screenings for all students. We are doing some PD on reporting requirements for mandated reporters. That's going to be reviewed during our opening day professional learning session. And we're going to try to provide a comprehensive list of wellness resources to staff, families, and students, because this is an area of concern for us, as we've heard expressed by a lot of our parents. So we believe that we have a great group of individuals who work in this area, and we believe that they'll be able to offer as many of the services as we can that they would receive in person as opposed to online. So, so really the next steps, finalizing our class schedules at all levels. As you can see, there's still a work in progress, and we're really wanting to make sure that we can make these work and that we can provide those details out to parents once we get all of those things established. We are going to offer parent forums to show what the typical instructional day will look like and have the ability for them to answer questions. So we'll probably be doing some Zoom sessions at each one of the levels, both Wilkes-Barre, elementary, middle school, and high school, so that we can walk through some of these questions that you're having as we review these schedules. We'll offer those same ability to ask questions for our parents. So I assume that there's probably some of those parents out in the audience that are looking at these schedules that have questions. So we do want to offer those forums to our parents. We also are looking at exploring the options for parent-student orientations, possibly in person if we could make that happen in small groups or virtually. We want to make sure that they know how to manage the online platform and provide ways to support their students with remote learning. Obviously, we heard that from Molly at the lower L grades. We know that that's going to be a challenge for our Wilkes-Barre parents. And so we're going to try to offer as many of the supports and some suggestions as to how we can help parents navigate through those difficult times of managing online learning for the younger learners. So, and we will continue to provide professional development to our teachers along the way. As I mentioned earlier, you know, this is a new area for all of us, but I feel we got the best teachers around, and we know that we can make this work. And we want to work collaboratively with our teachers and all our support staff to make sure that we can create this online environment that works in all areas for all of our students. So I believe that concludes the presentation. We will have this presentation online here tomorrow, and we will begin to provide more detail, as I mentioned, on the schedules and when those parent forums will be. So we want to try to get out that information as soon as possible. We know now that we've at least offered a solution in terms of what the fall might look like. We know that the parents will have a lot of questions, and we want to offer those opportunities to answer those questions as they come up. So I would turn that over to you, President Lemmer, from here. Any questions?
Oh, yes. Well, one question that comes to mind, going back to your initial recommendation that we begin the school year fully online, and that we evaluate, do our assessment, see how things are going, both from the student and the faculty perspective, I would hope. And your recommendation, you'd be bringing a recommendation for next steps by the October 12th meeting. So that wouldn't mean we would immediately then jump to in-person after October 12th. It sounds like you would be giving us the opportunity to weigh in, look at the data that's been collected, and make a decision about maybe in 2 weeks, maybe at the end of the marking period, maybe Thanksgiving break, et cetera. Is that, am I understanding what that process might
Correct.
look like?
You know, we don't, like I mentioned earlier, we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple weeks, let alone the next month. So we just want to leave our options open to make sure that we are evaluating at points in the process as we are online, so that if there comes a point where we can come back to school, we want that. And we want to just make sure that we have those decision points in place that the board can evaluate and make a decision moving forward.
I was going to add on to that. So I know that's a little later than what we've seen from some neighboring districts. You know, why would it be essential for us to go with a slightly later planned evaluation for that? Not to evaluate later, but to push that out a little farther.
Well, so I believe a lot of the districts, or at least some of the districts, have used the September 30th, and that date is because the exception for seat time waivers expires on September 30th. So we're pretty confident that will be extended, but for some reason in September, if we get the word that that's not going to happen, then as I mentioned earlier, we'll present those ideas in September if we have to make a decision earlier. But that's really, the October 12th was just the first board meeting after September and the time to evaluate during that month. It could be later, as President Lemmer mentioned, we don't really know, but we want to make sure that we have the data and at least presenting the data so that we can make a decision moving forward.
So Steve, can you talk a little bit about, would we wait until after that first assessment, that target, to then start preparing for hybrid in person, or would that work be going on earlier than that October 12th potential date for reporting?
Yeah, I think we're gonna, we already have been working on the hybrid model over the last several weeks. So I think we need to fine tune that. The safety measures is one of the things that I mentioned earlier that we're really going to try to work on getting those things in place, because we know that at some point, if we can return, we have to have those things in place. So I think we're going to be working on the hybrid model in terms of all the safety precautions and what we potentially need to do. And so those will be part of the decision points as we share with the board over that period of time. Where are we at and how close are we to feeling comfortable that we have everything in place to bring back students into our buildings.
And it could be earlier too, Steve. Is that what I'm hearing? You're going to be evaluating. I mean, we have board meetings in September as well, and you'll be updating us on the data and where we are at those meetings as well.
Correct. We'll have a scheduled discussion item or a part of my report, each one of those meetings, to kind of let the board know where we're at and also how we're doing online too. We want to get feedback from parents and our staff to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to be successful.
Steve, can we be a little more specific about what kind of data we're talking about here? We're using that as a fairly generic term, but one of my presumptions is that part of that data is close examinations of what's happening with COVID in our community and the continuing ability of our community to control community spread, which we are currently at this snapshot in time doing a good job on the control of community spread. But as was mentioned tonight, we face a challenge when MSU returns, and we don't know if that will impact our community in a broader sense or not. So I see the need to examine a lot of data, both the health data, the online instructional data about how that is going and how confident our teachers are, where we're at in preparing our buildings for more restrictive safety measures, and where our staff is at in being able to execute those measures. So talk a little bit about that, please.
So we've been in contact with the Ingham County Health Department. We had a meeting last week with Linda Vale, and they've been very supportive in terms of providing us with that data. I think we're going to have to come up with a metric scale in terms of those things that you just listed right there. Obviously, the health data, we're going to have to do surveys of our staff to make sure, where they are at their comfort level. We're going to have to evaluate those safety measures, as I mentioned earlier. Where are we at? Do we have a plan for lunch? Do we have a plan for busing? All of those things that right now we have challenges facing making those things happen. So I think we'll probably put together a list of all those metrics that will be included in making that decision, and hopefully we can come up with those things to present to the board so that they have information from all those areas when we have to make a decision moving forward.
Well, and I would also expect some of that to include conversation and education with our community, because the whole community is going to have some obligations to continue to participate in the control of community spread, to safely return students. And also, we have to develop the metrics for what do we do if we have a potential case, or if we have a positive case, of how it is we have to respond to that, so that our community knows in advance the kind of decision metrics that we're going to walk through if and when that happens.
We did get a sneak preview of what the Ingham County Health Department's plan is. We've not seen that formally in writing, but we did get kind of a look at what that would mean moving forward, exactly laying out exactly those things that you talked about. What if we have a case? What are the procedures in place? What is the county going to be working with us, and how we move forward in terms of what decisions need to be made after that?
Steve, can you talk a little bit about how we're going to evaluate the online learning, both from a family and student perspective and from a staff perspective, if you've thought about it? I think for me, one of my concerns is, will there be differences in learning outcomes for our students who have to rely more on asynchronous learning for a whole bunch of different reasons than those who are able to participate synchronously? And how that experience differs, because I don't want us to accidentally create disparate outcomes for some of our students for reasons that are really out of their control.
Mm-hmm. So as Susan mentioned earlier, obviously, progress monitoring is going to be a big part of that, and checking in with students, to making sure that they're doing those assignments and that we're able to evaluate progress in terms of the core areas. So I think our teachers are going to be a big part of that, along with our administrative team, to put up something in place to make sure that we're evaluating where students are. Obviously, we can take some attendance when they're asynchronous or synchronous learning, but we need to make sure that students are turning in assignments, that we're doing some form of progress monitoring to make sure that students are moving forward.
Also, I think that our teachers do a really nice job already about giving students multiple opportunities to show proficiency on assignments. So that will be hugely important in the online world, because if they haven't been a part of that live instruction, they may not have fully understood concepts. So offering that flexibility to redo assignments and have them give the feedback on them and adjust the grades as appropriate. And I think our staff does that already. I know they do that already. And so just being more consistent with those practices as we journey through the online world.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
First, can I recommend you unshare your screen so it's a little easier to see all of my speaking board members here?
Thanks. Sorry about that.
It just makes so I can see everyone who's talking. Second, I did want to say thank you to the community so far. I mean, it shows that we have a really engaged school system here, that we have so many families and parents and teachers and administrators and community members still on this call with us as we keep on going. But obviously, we want to be thorough. So we talked, I do love that we are in the position to be able to provide proper devices for the students to do the virtual learning. I'm pretty thankful that we put this all in motion beforehand, and we approved the purchase of those Chromebooks before this was even, a chance of happening. So I, thank you to everyone who put that in motion. But I also think about the non-electronic things. So are we going to be able to provide textbooks or workbooks or any of the physical materials, so that, we talk about, we don't want students on screen all the time. But in this virtual learning, how much of the non-screen time things are we going to be able to provide for them?
Yeah, so pretty much most of the curriculum materials that we would utilize in class, we'll be able to find a way to get those materials to our students in packets that we'll have a pickup time for that. So any textbooks that they're going to need, a lot of our textbooks are online. So we will utilize those as needed, but also if we can check out textbooks to students so that they have access to those copies as well.
Uh-oh, we lost you, Susan.
Oh.
Either that or she's really good at holding still.
And then, can
Susan,
you hear me now?
broke up. We can hear you now, but you probably have to repeat what you just said. Oh, John.
Steve, can I jump in here with a question while we wait for Susan to get back?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so on each of your slides there, you threw a bullet point there of mental health screenings, and I'm not sure if this is one of those areas where we're still trying to work through some of the logistics, because I think that we're talking about something totally different to be doing mental health screening in person than it is, you know, online. And so I'm not sure what discussions have been had with all your administrators on how you're looking to meet, I think, what is going to be really a critical need here with those screenings.
So we don't really have a full plan for that right now. We obviously have to meet with our mental health professionals to come up with a plan of what that looks like. I know that in the spring we did provide those supports. Obviously that's going to change in the fall with being fully online again. So we'll have to kind of work with our mental health professionals and determine exactly what that's going to look like, and hopefully give those resources to parents once we figure out what that plan looks like.
This is a question in part for Susan, unfortunately, as well, but I'm sure people are curious about what the possible in-person opportunities are that were mentioned. In particular, I know we've heard a lot from parents of students in our special education program or who have IEPs, et cetera. And I would hope perhaps other, well, you mentioned at-risk, like MTSS students, et cetera. I'm babbling, I apologize. What are some of those in-person possibilities? Have you gone deep dive on that yet?
So Susan, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
I missed half of her question, so if you
Just some of the in-person opportunities that were mentioned for students with special needs and or at-risk students in particular.
So we are exploring some options for that. We have to work through some logistical things with legal counsel to make sure that we're doing that correct.
Oh no.
Darn it.
Well, let me ask another question while we're unfreezing Susan. Steve, have you given any thought?
Oh, yeah, try again, Susan, without the video. Sometimes that works. We did not hear any of your response.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we are exploring some options of ways to bring in small groups of special education students and then general education students that might need some extra supports. And as we finalize the plan for that, then we can share that out with how we will do that and what that might look like. So we're just trying to get some specifics, but that is a hope that if we have teachers that are willing to meet with small groups of students to help them with, especially the intervention pieces that we know our kids need, we might be able to manage that on a small group level.
Part of that will be making sure that obviously we have all the safety measures in place before we would, venture into bringing students back into the building. So that'll be another piece of the decision on when and how that happens.
And I want to circle back to Greg's question too, Susan, when you were rejoining us, Greg asked a little bit about the mental health screenings and sort of addressing the challenge of doing an online assessment, if you will. It's going to be a different experience than when we're face-to-face with our students. And related to that, I think we discussed last week in some of the return to school plans, there is language about quote unquote trained professionals or certified professionals. I don't have the language in front of me. So that is, I assume that's something that's still being worked out as well in terms of who those professionals are, who will be doing the assessments, et cetera.
Correct. So the roadmap indicates that we have to do mental health screenings of all of our students. We do have counselors and social workers in every building, but that's going to be a little bit taxing on them to do every single student. So we will need to sit down with them and work out the details of that and how we will manage those pieces. But to follow up with what I think Greg was referencing is that our students and making sure that their mental health needs are met is a hugely important thing for us, even when we are in school. And we have you know, when we have students that maybe don't show up, even in the spring when we were doing our CLP plans, and we would have students that maybe were not showing up online or not participating, teachers and administrators were diligently working to make connections with those students and making sure that they could check on those kids. We even had administrators and some teachers that went to homes to check on kids. So we will continue to do that work just like we do when we're in school on a daily basis and checking on our students to make sure that, you know, their needs are being met and that we can, if there are bigger concerns, you know, helping them to get community resources, helping them to connect with the right people to get the resources that they need.
Steve, I wanted to ask if we've given any thought on the format or the time frame for updating our families, maybe by building over the next few short weeks, about what August 31st is going to look like. I don't want to be silent with them until that date. I mean, we need to have some way of keeping them up to date on where we're at as the planning evolves and the details get fleshed out. Have you given some thought as to how you're going to do that?
Yeah, so we're hoping to put together, if the decision is finalized tonight, we're hoping to put together a calendar of events from now until August 31st that would basically outline all of the dates of things that we're offering, whether that's forums, whether that's in-person help for parents, and so that people can visually see what's offered between now and when school starts. As I mentioned, we're looking at orientations. We're not sure exactly how that's going to work in terms of, you know, building orientations or individual classroom orientations. So we're still working through those details, but hopefully we can put a calendar together that will outline kind of a timeline for August 31st and before the first day of school so that parents are aware of what's going on.
So how do you think you will notify the families that that exists and where it is? What should our families look for?
Well, we have various methods of communication right now. Obviously, our website's the big one. We have our app that we push information out to. We try to do email blasts. You know, we try to offer as much information and variety of sources so that we can reach all of our families. Obviously, you know, we don't know that we reach everybody, but that will be the goal ultimately once we decide exactly how it's going to happen.
So I think to go off of what Karen was asking, and you mentioned it, Steve, with orientations, you know, we're not going to have orientations the same way, we're not going to have open houses the same way, is the expectation that there will be some sort of chance in that week before school, like we usually do, where small groups of students can pop in virtually to meet their teacher, or especially from, you know, I think it's always nice to at least feel like you know a face before you walk in that first day, especially for our younger kids, to feel like there's a connection that's already started there. So just wondering if you guys have thought through what that might be, especially for our students going to new schools. So our kindergartners, our second graders, our sixth graders, and our ninth graders.
Yeah, so currently our building principals are working together to try to come up with a plan for that in terms of orientation, a lot of those things that you talked about. We don't have exact details yet. Now that we know potentially that we're going to go fully online, those are the things that we're going to have to put together. I know I've talked to the building principals and they have ideas, but you know, we haven't really shared any of that yet until we know exactly what direction we're going in. So hopefully that will come very soon.
Well, Mr. Cook, I do want to correct you that the board has not taken a vote yet. You have made your recommendation.
Yeah, no, I said if that is the case.
Right. But I wanted to actually circle back in. I think your preliminary slide, you talked about walking us through some of the rationale. And I would like you to revisit that aspect for me a little bit. I mean, you talked generally about the safety of our staff and students, and I do want to note, as a few commenters said, we've heard a lot about students, but our public comment has not necessarily been very focused on the safety of our faculty and staff. And I agree that needs to be obviously a huge part of the conversation as well. But what are some of the other factors that really led you to bring this recommendation to us?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, the second bullet point is the safety measures in the buildings. You know, that's our big challenge, is that in phase 4, the governor's outlined both required, highly recommended, and recommending safety measures. And as we looked at operationally, all of those things, as I mentioned, like transportation, lunches, all of those things that we needed to address, we just felt that the challenges outweighed being able to achieve all of those things before we could bring students back into school. So, you know, we don't have a lot of time to do that. So that's one of our biggest challenges. So that kind of goes in with our obviously with our staff and students. So if we don't have the safety measures in place, then we can't assure that staff is going to be safe coming back into the buildings if we don't have all those things in place before we can do that. So that's our goal over the next next 4 weeks, to do that, to plan and make sure that when we bring students back into the building, that we have those safety measures in place. And as you know, we did a survey with our staff to see where their comfort level was. We'll probably do another survey to look at PP at some point as to what they feel comfortable in terms of having, if in fact we have to go back in person. So those are just some examples of what we would potentially do. And, you know, the last piece is the the proficiency in a single instructional model. You know, as I mentioned, I believe our teachers do a great job at delivering in-person instruction. The online piece is a challenge right now. We think we'll get there. And so, as was mentioned earlier, having to jump back and forth between online and in-person is very difficult to manage. So we want to make sure that our teachers get up to speed and proficient at delivering the online piece first and foremost.
Okay, thank you for reiterating those points. Other questions or comments from board members?
Just another thing that the community might be wondering is how we will be using special area instructors during this time, like band, choir, even physical education, what their role will be in the virtual system.
So it's our hope to, at the high school level, our elective teachers really need to have classes that are designed for credit. So we are working through some of those that maybe will not work in the virtual environment and trying to figure out what those will look like. And our instructors are working on those diligently right now, waiting on the decision from tonight to make sure they know which direction that we are going. At the middle school and at the elementary level, it may look slightly different. We are going to have some live instruction for creative arts classes that we can do in the virtual setting. And then in other places, there might be things that are uploaded as asynchronous learning, and then those people might be used in other capacities to help with interventions and other small group instructional pieces. Those pieces have not been completely hammered out yet, but they will be very shortly once we have a decision on what our plan is moving forward. Because if we are in a hybrid mode, then we need those people in their classes doing what they do. But if we're not in a hybrid mode, it might look slightly different. So again, the decision tonight is imperative to move forward with those groups of people.
Right. Yeah, not that we can't continue to be creative even with an online situation for some of that virtual learning. I just know the community might be wondering how we're utilizing those teachers who are also imperative to our kids' learning.
Yep, it's definitely a good question. We want to utilize them in the best way possible based on the format.
Susan and Steve, can you talk a little bit about how our teachers and staff have been involved so far in making plans and some of the work I know that so many of them have been doing over the summer to prepare for different formats, for different ways of maybe presenting their instruction, that we're not, whatever decisions made tonight, we're not kind of starting from ground zero.
Correct. So our teachers and our administrators have been involved in lots of committee work at the ISD level and at the local level to do the planning that we've done so far. Remember that we've been in the mode of trying to plan for 3 different probable formats. So we've been putting together all of the pieces of that. Also, people that may or may not be on committees have been doing professional development through the ISD. There's a lot of opportunities for that. And I know our teachers have gone above and beyond this summer to get involved in those because, again, no matter what format we're in, there is going to be a component of online for them, which is new territory. So they're getting up to speed with the things that they need to learn to do the best to transition their curriculum into an online format as well. So there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes. I don't know that anybody's had a vacation or much.
Well, I think building off of what Susan commented, there has been some concern about how structured the online education will be, how rigorous it will be, you know, and
vacation. But again, we're going to get this done. We're going to make it happen.
Sorry, we're chuckling because you froze, Susan, and then you reappeared.
I reappeared? I'm on the screen?
No, just your
No.
voice.
We lost your voice for a while, Susan.
Okay.
That, you know, our staff has been working really, really hard to be able to present the full curriculum online. And so the instruction is going to be rigorous, and it is going to deliver what they would have gotten in person in the classroom. I won't say what it's going to look like because it probably will look a little different than when they were standing in front of their classroom, but it is going to be rigorous, and there are going to be assessments. And I'm confident that they're going to come through with that. You know, the first week or so may be a little bit rough as everybody adapts to the technology, but I think it will catch on quickly.
I think to add on to Karen's comment there as well is, you know, our goal is to safely and eventually go back to face-to-face learning and things like that. You know, that it seems that is the end goal, however that may be or how long it takes based on the criteria. Now, the 100% virtual learning right now gets us ready for hybrid learning. You know, it's going to take a long time to get back to 100% face-to-face. So I do think that this is a good plan, and you know, our teachers are doing the professional development and everything here to put the steps in place to get us towards a hybrid learning plan as well.
I'd like to say, after Josh just said that too, that I think we are planning, even if we start virtually, that there has to be a plan in place to reevaluate regularly. And the hybrid plan already exists to transition us to face-to-face, because I'm going to be honest, as a parent, I filled out the survey. I wanted face-to-face, I wanted hybrid. And for me to get to the point of, you know, really doing the 100% virtual online option, it's tough because I look at it, like I said, as a parent, I want my kids in school, which we all do. And for those of you who don't know who are watching this, I am a certified teacher. I was a teacher for 21 years. So I do take the concerns of the teachers very seriously. And I understand all of the work that they're putting into these plans and how much work they are going to be doing throughout this whole process. But when Superintendent Cook says we are not physically ready to have the safety protocols in place, whether through, you know, we are still finishing construction, we have to get the signs, we have to do the social distancing correctly to keep our staff and students safe, then I personally don't know that there's another option at this point. But I do like that we have the plan in place to reevaluate it on a regular basis, to give our special ed students possibility of face-to-face instruction, you know, and to have that hybrid plan in place. Then I feel, that makes me feel more comfortable. I'll put it that way.
Well, and certainly building on Tracy, what I would look forward to, and maybe we can have this conversation at our board meeting next Monday, our regularly scheduled board meeting, is being able to begin to map out what it takes to do those assessments about our readiness to go to hybrid, because those things are also going to need to get onto the calendar, whether or not we're having forums that involve the community in conversation, because I do feel it's important to bridge the knowledge gap and to get a little more common understanding about the health risks and how we need to move forward and behave. So I'd like to have a conversation about the different things we need to do to get to that successful assessment and feel confident one way or the other that we're making the right decision in early October about can we phase in hybrid or do we have to postpone? I want to be able to make that confidently and with full knowledge that the community supports.
I'll go ahead and add, because people have been referencing the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations and other recommendations. And the line that stuck out for me, all policy considerations for the incoming school year or for the coming school year should start with a goal of having students physically present in school. The importance of in-person learning is well documented, and there's already evidence of the negative impacts of children because of school closures in the spring. And I agree 100% with that statement. And I feel that as a district and a board, we have been approaching this decision with that goal, the goal of being in person. And I think, unfortunately, as Mr. Cook said, we are not ready to do that safely. And it's not just we as Hazlet Public Schools. I don't think other districts are either. As was kind of referenced, even in conversations with the health department, their plan for us is not yet ready. So the public health officials to whom we're turning for guidance are still also developing what our best practices should be and what supports and guidance they're providing to us. So that point resonates with me. As with Mr. Cook's comments about just all of the safety protocols and measures that will need to be in place. We have been purchasing PPE. We have some supplies. It's not like the district hasn't been doing anything. We have, as has been noted, our teachers have been on committees, and parents and other community members have been part of these conversations. And there have been meetings with public health officials and physicians. And so I don't know, I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to comment and or ask questions before we move forward.
One more, Tammy, real quick, that
yeah,
for some reason you just made me think of. So we've been talking about transitioning to a hybrid, and Steve, I want to make sure that I'm correct in my assumption that even when we go to a hybrid, those who want their children to still learn 100% online will have that option. Is that correct?
Correct.
So even when we move to hybrid, it's not that then everybody is expected to come back and be in the building, that we want to acknowledge that every family has, as was mentioned before, everybody has a different set of risks. They have kind of a different way of figuring out what risks they're comfortable with their family and making those calculations. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear and clearly stated.
Absolutely, you are correct. And we know that families may change their mind. You know, we did the survey a week ago, as was mentioned by some of the folks, some of the families or parents that commented that, you know, that's changed. And so it's going to continually change. So as we get to that point again, where we have to make a decision about going to hybrid, we're obviously going to have to find out, you know, how many families are willing to send their students back at that time. It may change. That may go up, it may go down. We just don't know.
So I just want to say, you know, for those of you who know me, that I work with public health folks around the state, and, you know, they'll give you different answers sometimes as far as what they think is coming this fall. Are we going to have a second wave? Are we doing enough of the right things to keep our numbers under control? You know, I appreciate Dr. Khaldun at the end of last week talking about if we wear our masks and if we social distance and we do those things over August, then a lot of our schools could be in good shape to come back to school. They could do these things and do them safely. So I encourage Steve, you know, keep working with Ingham County Health Department and not just the administrators. However, you can make that information available to our community, to our teachers, to our staff, so that they feel like they can get the answers to all those questions they have to feel better. I'm kind of like Tracy in that I really want it in person. My kids are desperately needing it in different ways, but I really appreciate the focus on safety for our staff, for our students, for our families, making sure that we do this the right way as far as keeping people as safe as possible, and that we do the education the right way. We make sure that this online component is working and it's providing the quality of education that we really expect, so that it's really the foundation then to do the hybrid model in the future. So, you know, I wish situations were different. I am feeling for the families that I wish we could, you know, who are going to be struggling. And I know there are lots, for a lot of different reasons, for, you know, two parents both having to work, and what are you doing with childcare and all those questions. And I wish there was a way that we could address all of the concerns that everybody's going to have. So I think we're just going to all have to be creative and figure out how we get through at least these next few months and support each other and support our kids as they keep learning.
Thanks. Greg, I didn't have you on my screen at first, but I see now you're waving. So
sorry, Greg.
Sometimes you just have to shout out because this Zoom is not perfect.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this October 12th date and the logistics of building out. I know all of the complexities that come with the renovations here. Steve and Susan faced with here to get all these schools actually ready for face-to-face, but then we've thrown on top of it now getting ready for a virtual online start of the year potentially, but then also, again, echoing some of the sentiments of my fellow board members that are focusing on that, you know, that hybrid solution that we really need to focus on. So the October 12th, does that include those logistics of getting ready for that hybrid, Steve, or really where do you feel you're at with the renovations and getting ready with all the safety precautions in place? Is that a date before October 12th?
Yeah, I think that we can get there before October 12th. Part of it will be coordinating some of those things, like I say, like transportation, meals in the classroom or in the lunchroom where there's a lot larger audience of students. And so it's, you know, we're gonna have to work through the logistics of that. But I think in terms of the buildings itself, that we can absolutely meet the majority of the physical things that we need to do in the buildings to make sure that they're safe by October 12th. Does that answer your question, Greg?
It did, yeah, thank you, Steve. Perfect.
And that October 12th date being when maybe a potential decision would come from the board on when or how to shift to hybrid or online, maybe if a miracle happens, or not online, maybe in person if a miracle happens.
Yeah, I think if we've learned anything, everything is fluid, and what we knew last month is different from what we know this month. And, you know, I'm always hopeful, but then something happens that dampens my hope a little bit. But certainly I would really like to know ultimately in a couple of months, the extent to which cleaning all the surfaces is really a necessity. Because there are a lot of demands right now in the recommendations and the requirements for opening that are really, really going to be exhausting over the course of the day. They're going to be hard to maintain. We're already going to be asking teachers to not hug their students, not touch their students. There's many habits that we're going to be asking not to do when they see their students. And then to add on many of these additional things, I'm hoping there's fluidity, there's change, there's increasing knowledge so that we can know the 3 to 5 things, whatever is absolutely essential, that's what you do. And that's gonna be the best you can do. So I'm hoping everything evolves by October 12th. So that there's maybe some more simplicity than we have at the moment.
I think that's another good point, Karen, you raised, because I think, again, I said it, the APA says it, many of us personally want to be back in person. And I think that we need to remember that being back in person is not back to normal. People have been using that term, and it is not going to be normal no matter what decision we make tonight. And again, I want to reiterate to the community, people were making references to the decision already being made. The board has not even met since last week. So a decision has not been made and will not be made until we vote this evening. But in the deliberation, and part of the factor that I'm using is that recognition of what does it need to look like to be in person, and that is not going to be the same educational experience that we have personally experienced as adults, that those of us who have children currently in the schools or have graduated have had, and it's just unfortunately not going to be the same. Other comments or questions?
And I'm feeling like this is comments from board members.
Okay. Yeah, we're still in discussion. We
okay. And if that's the case, I would just like to reiterate something Tammy said earlier in the week to all of us. You know, we're so grateful for the community and their support of us, and telling us, like, thank you so much for all your extra time and effort. And President Lemmer made a comment that, you know, the time we're putting in doesn't compare to the time that our staff members, all of our teachers, our administrators, the teams that have put together these return to school plans. Yes. And there's just so much work that has been put into all of this. And we appreciate your gratitude toward us. But again, it doesn't hold a candle to what the staff and administrative teams have put forth here. So I just want to reiterate that. And we, you know, our job isn't done tonight. Again, President Lemmer stated, we're going to continue to evaluate and reevaluate. And we are on the side of our staff, our students, and our families. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, and then we might be ready to move into our action item. But we are not taking this decision lightly. We have not been taking any aspect of this lightly. I know it's been a challenge. We're getting feedback of, well, all the other schools around us have decided, which technically is not true. But aside from that, maybe the contiguous districts are, but not all of the greater Lansing districts. But we are doing what's right for Hazlet Public Schools, our students, our teachers. And I believe we're taking the amount of time we need to make an informed decision. And so I do appreciate the patience of our community. And also, I am sorry for the undue stress, or I shouldn't say undue stress, but the stress that the delay has caused our families and our faculty and staff. But has been referenced, we did not want to rush into this. We did not want to make a decision for the sake of making a decision. We were not going to choose an option based on what other districts around us have chosen to do. We need to do what's in the best interest of our Hazlet community. So with that being said, seems like we might be wrapping up our discussion and moving into our action item, which would be to make a decision in reference to the recommendation of Mr. Cook on starting the school year, the 2021 school year, in a 100% online format.
Tammy, do you need us to make a motion that we vote on?
That would be probably the easiest course of action, to make a motion, probably to accept the recommendation, and then we could again debate and vote yay or nay on that recommendation.
Do you want the recommendation to include the component of working to revisit the decision on October 12th.
I would think if you make a motion to accept the recommendation, that is part of the recommendation, so that should be sufficient. Am I right, Tammy?
Probably true. Steve, can you put that first screen, the recommendation screen up?
Yeah.
And then again, as part of the motion, we can decide that we want to approve the 100% online, but we don't like the timeline, and we can adjust that too. But I think, yes, if someone would make a motion inclusive of this language.
Okay, I will move that we begin instruction on August 31st, fully online, with a continuing analysis of conditions, with a re-examination of the decision to be fully online no later than October 12th, 2020. To determine if we continue remote learning or move to a hybrid model.
Sounds like a motion is on the floor. Do I have a second?
I second that.
I'll second.
I heard Josh first. Motion by East, second by Maury. We don't typically follow strict Roberts rules to do a pro and a con argument, but I will open the floor for comments in favor or against the motion. Or hearing no comments, we could move straight to a vote.
Greg has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see you, Greg. You got to speak up, please.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to be first here. I think we've all expressed some of our views here. For me personally, though, I've not gone out on that ledge yet, but I will there, so I don't extend my yay or nay vote any longer than what it needs to be. But you know, I think over the past several months, we've had a lot of our choices taken away from us, and so we're going to be doing that. I believe we've taken the choice away from our families in the district, albeit for all the good reasons that we've laid out here tonight. And so, me personally, with coming from that law enforcement the background, I have grave concerns that we are elevating issues on the home front that we haven't, I don't think, properly addressed. So the fact that we've had healthcare officials in the county share their thoughts with us here, even being the Ingham County lead health official from Ingham County, saying it is safe to go back to school, and then we're weighing that against the logistics of being ready for the students because of not having everything in place. And when the majority of our families, we put a survey out there, say that they'd like to get back to face-to-face. Again, we've taken that choice away from them. So I'm not confident that the decision that we are making today is the right one for the betterment of our families. Again, my personal biases of coming from a law enforcement background and seeing what I've seen over my lifetime and knowing what goes on behind the closed doors, specifically in Hazlet community and the Oakes communities and the East Lansing communities, that we're going to have to work incredibly hard to cover this gap of those students not having that, I think that place of safety where we have that mandatory reporting of that child abuse, that sexual abuse, and the neglect that is so needed for a lot of the kids in our community.
Yeah, to follow up on what Greg said, I know I wish there was a different choice that I felt like could be made. I wish there was a way for particularly our teachers and our staff to feel safe coming back to school. And I'm really hoping that's the focus, not only of making sure the online learning is going well and the teachers are able to focus on that, but our administrators and us in support are making sure that that school is safe and the teachers know that we're doing everything we can to keep them safe. Because, and Greg, I'm coming from a different background than you, but I've just heard from enough families in this community that I know are going to be struggling, and enough students who are going to be struggling, that that it is a hard choice to make, and just hoping that not having a choice is a shorter term prospect.
Mhm. Thanks, Molly.
Well, I think I'm going to speak a little more affirmatively. When I saw what was going to be asked of our administrators, our building administrators, and our teachers to bring our students into the classroom, it was quite overwhelming to me to understand how they could manage that from the get-go and have to embrace a new model for delivery of their curriculum, because there has to be an online component. There's no way around that. And asking them to take on the full safety and security of the students in their classrooms and themselves, and teach online and in person, and have to restrain from habits when they are in their classroom that have been well formed and made them highly successful teachers. I just think is a bridge too far. And I think it's also a matter of, we have a snapshot today of where we are health-wise, and that we have already seen has changed from month to month, and I hope it continues to go in the right direction. But again, I'm concerned that at the same time that we are proceeding to open, that we are seeing an influx of students from other parts of the country to MSU. And I don't know how big that population is going to be. I expect it's not as big as the typical student move-in, but there will be students, and it's likely to challenge our area. And I would certainly like to be able to have a little bit of a pause through that, so that we can see what happens, because you don't see the outbreak until it's upon you. The cases have already happened when you recognize it. So I'm affirmatively comfortable. It's painful, and I don't like having to make this choice, but I do think it's the right choice to start online. Give us some time to take a second look, because I continue to be a little concerned about what our youngest learners will encounter in the classroom when they're in person. That, there are challenges for them online, but I'm concerned of what the environment could also look for that, like for them when they are in person and they can't have physical contact. So many challenges ahead, but I'm sad but confident that this is the right choice.
Josh, Tracy, Cami, would any of you like to make any comments?
I feel like I already said what I needed to say earlier.
I would say the only thing I had was to contrast Greg just a little bit. I don't think it's a lack that we can't get ready and safety measures in place, but it's to do all of those things safely at the same time. I mean, we can decide, the classroom, I don't doubt that the classrooms would be ready. I mean, we had a plan to complete construction. I don't think our construction is our holdup to getting us back in the classroom, but more so operating a day-to-day basis in a safe manner for our students, for our faculty, for our staff, for our teachers. And I don't see how that can happen face-to-face in any shape or form yet, but I hope so, that things eventually lead us to that path.
I am relieved that we have that expectation.
Cami, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I am just going on the correspondence that we received, and the majority of staff and community was concerned with starting the school year with any face-to-face instruction. And that is what I'm leaning toward, starting the year 100% virtual, and reevaluating as time goes on.
Right, well, we have a motion on the floor. Sounds like everybody has had an opportunity to weigh in. I think my comments are also stand for themselves in terms of wishing we could be in person. And when that was determined not to be possible, I was very hoping that hybrid would be the option we could move to. But unfortunately, I find myself being concerned about, again, the ongoing safety, in particular for our staff. I think there's still so much that's unknown. They're breaking studies just over the weekend that are giving us possibly different information about virus load and contagiousness of youth. But we also have a responsibility to our faculty and staff as well. And there's literally no doubt, there never has been any doubt, that our adult staff could be and would be at risk. I would not feel comfortable moving in that direction, knowing that we might not, and that's not even saying we wouldn't have everything in place, but the fear that there might be something that got missed, or that there is some aspect that didn't get fully addressed, even with you know, the full exemplary efforts and commitment and dedication of our staff. I just don't think that's a risk we can take as a district. So I will take a roll call vote. I'll just go in order of the comments that I heard. I'll say your name, and if you can indicate if you vote in favor of or against the proposal, the motion to accept the recommendation to return on August 31st with full online learning, with continuing analysis of the available data, with re-examination of the status and data no later than October 12th, to determine whether online needs to be continued, or if we can move to a hybrid model. I hope I got the language of that correct, Karen. So I'll go with Trustee Mashad.
I'm gonna vote against it.
Vote no. Vice President Polverento.
Vote in favor.
Treasurer East.
I vote in favor.
Trustee Collins.
I vote in favor.
Trustee Maury.
I vote in favor.
Trustee Wheeler, or excuse me, Secretary Wheeler.
I vote in favor.
And I, Tammy Lemmer, vote in favor. Motion carries 6-1. And we will then direct Mr. Cook and his staff to continue to move forward with the 100% online learning plan. I do hope, again, this gives some sense of resolution and eliminates that uncertainty, which will be positive for the community. And as noted, we have a lot of work to do. And our faculty and staff, hopefully you are feeling supported by your board of directors. And we want to be as supportive as possible, continuing with the next steps that will continue to evolve over the next 4 weeks. And we still have official business next week as a board of directors. We do in fact have to officially vote on the state's return to learning plan template. So Mr. Cook will have, we saw kind of a draft of that last week in terms of a discussion and an introduction to that. That is still being fine-tuned, and we'll, as a board, have to vote on that next week. That is the last item on our agenda. I will just announce that our next regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting will be held on August 10th at 7 p.m. We will continue to make that a virtual meeting just because, again, since we are still talking return to school and there may be public comments, hopefully some in favor. There likely will be some opposed. But just in anticipation of a high public participation rate, again, we are going to continue with an online format for next month's or next week's meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn, but first I again want to thank all of my colleagues on the board for your hard work over the last several weeks, but in particular this week, managing all the communication and you know, putting your best effort into making this difficult decision. Motion to adjourn.
I will move we adjourn.
Motion Paul Varento. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Collins. Any discussion? Seeing, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please state your name. No one's opposed. We are adjourned. Virtual gavel. Have a nice evening. Thanks so much to everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.